and lows of 17, while Dar es Salaam cloudy at 24 will go to highs of 29. Johannesburg cloudy at 16 will see highs of 26 with the summer months kicking in and lows of 8. Mogadishu will be partly sunny through Monday, highs of 31 and lows of 25, while it is mostly cloudy at 13 in Addis Ababa. We'll see highs of 22. Lagos is hazy this morning. Highs of 30 and lows of 25, while Kinshasa at 22 is mostly cloudy with highs of 32. Monday afternoon is sunny in Beijing at 22, we'll see highs of 26, while at 15 it's cloudy in Paris, we'll see highs of 19 and lows of 12. London is cloudy at 16 with highs of 17. Sunday night is clear in New York at 16, coming into Monday, we'll see highs of 21 and lows of 13.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Haya basi. Salimia watu.
Everybody's online this morning. Desmond Oti says good morning. CT Eric, okay. Ndu CT Eric Latiff is present. Yes, he is. Proverb from Yimbo. Where is Yimbo? When the widow...
Shire County.
Huh?
Shire County.
Okay.
That's where one professor, what is his name? I'll tell you his name.
Pause.
Where he taught, where he...
No, he is coming, Patrick Lumumba.
Okay. Wow.
PLO.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was looking for it. It's Palestinian which was coming to my mind. Yes.
I can understand why.
Patrick Ochiano Lumumba. Okay.
We see the proverb. Don Sabo says, Ndu, kindly ask CT, is politics all about formed opinions from the perceptions created of the citizens? I'll give you a minute to think about that.
Partly.
You've been asked.
I've responded. Partly.
Agri says, good morning and happy new week ahead. Paul Jehi, I'm the first to comment. You're not, but okay. Stephen Wangi says, good morning, Spices. Good morning to you. Peter Kiaria says, welcome back, Eric. Simon Mwehu says, good morning, family. Locked in as always. Ian Guaya says, good morning from Kisumu. Let me just see a collective welcome back because everybody's welcoming you back. Have you been welcomed?
I receive all the warm welcome backs. Asante sana.
Sky Simba says good morning. Hussein Ali says good morning, tuning in from Somalia. Onganyi Malala says good morning, Spice, you're doing a great job. Thank you for being here every morning, Onganyi. We don't take that for granted. Wajiro says good morning, happy new week. Good morning, Team Kubwa. Have a blessed week, says Moses Nyampura. Simon Wehu says the man in the chair himself is back. Yes, he is. Evans and Tabu, my condolences to the families who lost their children through the fire tragedy. Indeed. Breaks my heart to think about it. Paul calls me a queen, and how right you are. Good morning, Paul. Says good morning to CT. Happy to have you back, Eric. Ricardo Marietta says Kitengela is locked. Okoh Jeffrey is here. Sir George Gashohiri, we see you. Says good morning, my dear people. Have a positive start to the week. Robert Bogo is here. Jimmy Wekesa, Peter Otieno, the Kikombe. Good morning. Front seat waiting for Wajige. All right. Leo, good morning, Princess. And you see me, Princess Queen. Oh, Moja one.
All of them.
I'm telling you. Yeah. Jack Katambo is here as well. My prince says Eric Kingori Latiff is back. Linus Gitonga is also here. Chris Mora is here. Ushauri says good morning. Zach OK, Arsman Givindji Gatobu, Judy Wagari. Good morning, beautiful. How are you? Good to have you here as always. JB Mutua is here. Agola, we see you. Good morning. Eric, another Eric, Moses Mwagi. Everybody is in the room this morning. Karibuni sana. Tena sana.
Yes. City.
Yes, please.
Proverbs.
We are the final country that borders an ocean.
Okay.
We're looking at Somalia.
The final country that borders an ocean.
That he's giving proverbs from. He has not given from all the countries.
No, he is right.
He's right.
Yeah,
yes.
And you're absolutely right. We've been looking at countries, proverbs from countries who border the ocean.
Okay.
Countries, there are around 38 of them.
Okay.
So last week we were looking at the country of which country was it?
Cote d'Ivoire, the land of the elephants.
Cote of the d'Ivoire. This one we're looking at the Federal Republic of Somalia.
Very good.
Okay. You know, this country is old. Around 2350 BC.
Yes. 2350.
Yes, it was known as Punt, not Punt. Punt.
Okay.
Land of dark people. Okay. And between 980 BC and 1884 AD it was under one sultanate or the other or the other of the other. Okay?
From Oman.
No, this is Somalia. There was sultanate of this, sultanate of that. They had Arab influence, and just from among themselves, what we now refer to as the various states within Somalia, they had individual rulerships, but there was usually recognized one who was a supreme sultan. So that's why their country wasn't a republic, it was a sultanate, okay? The final sultan was a gentleman called Ishaq. So that regime was called the Ishaq Sultanate. That's 1749 to 1884. Then something happened. The British came that year. They ended the Sultanate story, okay? So it became British Somaliland. 4 years later, the Italians came. Changed. It became Italian Somaliland. Then 1960, 1st of July, they became independent. I'll tell you the story of what happened because it's very interesting. This is a country that had actually moved forward and had a fairly organized system to the point of having a Supreme Court. By this time, we're talking about 1960. Okay, then somewhere along the line, something happened. But I'll be telling that story later in the course of the week. Is that okay?
Sawa kabisa.
Right, now let me tell you a proverb. One does not tell a man, go away, but shows one something
To go away too.
Wait for it.
something he must do.
Like go away.
One does not tell a man to go away.
No.
But
It shows one something.
shows one
to do.
something.
Yani kwani hii kazi unaona mimi ndio nafanya fanya, si ndio? Yani unipimaje?
Kwenda huko.
Uko, yes.
Or like the lady who says, guys, they're disturbing her. He says, you know what? The trash hasn't been taken out for a couple of days.
Now you've got it. So the trash washed itself out. Kuishapata?
Kushapara kabisa.
Very good.
Headlines.
Painful search is what is on the front page of the Standard today. Where are our children? Parents of Endarasha Academy ask as the authorities look for missing learners. Today, it'll be day 3 as the caregivers hang on to every hope that their little ones are safe. And I will say their names. Travis Karaoke, grade 7. Ernest Mwangi, grade 5. Robinson Theuri, grade 6. Roy Brandon Mugo, grade 7. Bernard Warutere, grade 6. 46 is the number of children still missing from the Thursday night inferno. There are certain things that have been said. The PS for Basic Education, Dr. Belio Kipsang, has begged parents who have picked up their children to please state that they have picked up their children, because what that does is that it gives them an idea.
Start accounting.
Then they can start accounting. It is possible that the missing children are at home with their parents.
Wait, I thought it's the parents who are looking for these children.
Now the parents of these children are looking for them, right?
Also, the 46
The 46, they are not
unaccounted for.
Exactly.
By the school.
Yes.
Or by the parents.
So it's combined. The 46 is a combined number of those unaccounted for by school and parents.
Look.
Okay. So we'll get into the details of the story.
Okay.
But here we are saying that was the call. That Dr. Kipsang says, if you've taken your child from school, because there's
Please
still a
let
lot
us
of
know.
confusion, just let us know. Then we can tick it off the list, because they're going by the school registration.
Yeah.
All right? So we'll look at the details of that. Ogamba bows to pressure. Students call off protests. The university students have said, okay, fine, protests off, let's go to school. This funding model of yours, you scrap it or scrap it. EU reassures Kenya on trade pacts. That'll be interesting to look at. Trump and Harris are tied in the polls ahead of the TV debate, which will take place in a couple. Occupy vacant seats only, DP tells Raila allies. So, hata kama mnaingia kwa serikali, msikuje kufuta watu. Just take the seats that are available. Don't come here and start bringing
Which ones are
thorax.
these?
Whichever ones. Don't disturb us.
He's basically saying my seat is not vacant, for example.
For example, there's no deputy president's seat that's available. Don't come and start bringing thorax that you want to now be the deputy president. The ones that are available, sour. Those ones you can take. Otherwise, Chara Sisi. All right? So now let me tell you what's on the front page of The Nation as it has just come in. So now that's what's on the Standard. We'll give you the teacher story soon. On the front page of The Nation, there's a picture of the president of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto. Ruto, China, and dark SGR secrets. Dark. Where? In this picture, he's shaking the hand of
Xi.
Xi Jinping.
Xi.
Xi Jinping.
It is Xi. No.
Xi, just
Xi.
Xi
Xi
Jinping.
Jinping.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. As the president pursues extensions of SGR line, the current project continues to struggle with heavy costs, depreciating assets, and a web of secrecy over the manner and price at which it was procured. Still, even as taxpayers are slapped with hefty interest payments every year. So apparently there's some dark secrets about the SGR, which will do what? They will come to light. Things that are done in the darkness will always come to light. Okay. State backs down on new university funding model. They're also saying, okay, in order for us to go to school, let's also now relax a little bit so that we can go to school. We'll figure this thing out. Sawa. Lakini murudi shule. There's a small issue of 946 shillings salary raise for public servants. Civil servants have received an average pay rise of 946 shillings per month over the past 4 years through salary reviews, collective bargaining agreements, bonuses, and housing allowances.
Wait, every month it increases by 946?
Per month, yes.
So over the last 4 years,
Yeah, they've been
every
increasing.
month it goes up by 946, 946,
So
946.
if you look at every time there is a review and they say we're going to increase it by 4,000 shillings, for example, what they've done is that they've taken that number over the last 4 years and then they divided it by the number of months, and that's what it looks like in terms of that number. Not that you're sitting in January and then your salary plus 946 and then February plus 946, but it's an average that they've taken and then divided it over 4 years. So when they've done that with the increment, it looks as though that's what they've gotten an increment of per month over the last 4 years.
Okay.
Jitters over likely Ruto-Raila 2027 election deal. Can you imagine? And then there are people that don't have food. And the Russia horror, unanswered questions as detectives intensify probe. They're still not sure what caused this fire. They're still checking it out to see. Everybody and their uncle came down to Nyeri the other day, from CS Kindiki to DCI to, forensic people. Everybody was there to try and figure it out. It's going to be slow, but it's coming. We'll know what caused this to avoid it in the future. On the back page of The Nation, it's onwards and upwards from here. Nairobi City Marathon winners dream big. They're saying we'll go from Nairobi to the world.
Okay. So let me tell you what's in the Business Daily. The untold story of Kenya's fake substandard cement, not fertilizer, simiti. 3 in 5 samples of cement produced products that the Kenya Bureau of Standards collected in a market surveillance operation failed the standards test, a leaked report shows. The report indicates that only 38.1% of the cement tested in February 2022 met the required standards, including the capacity to withstand the slightest pressure without crumbling. Subsequent tests by KEBS found that the quality of cement improved, with 63.4% meeting the compressive strength last December, which the standards body attributed to successful surveillance, corrective action, and enhanced quality control by manufacturers. Okay. There's a story here about taxation. 80% of firms snub KRA's e-teams in first year of rollout. More than 3/4 of the registered companies have snubbed KRA's electronic tax invoice management system, dealing a blow to efforts to drive compliance and curb tax evasion. Guy! Suppliers slap state with 21 billion shilling bill for delayed payments. Contractors and suppliers have started slapping state agencies holding huge pending bills with penalties in what is likely to present a new headache for the government. This is just penalties. 21 billion shillings.
Penalties.
Because you have not paid me on time. Bill seeks a new professional body for licensing bankers. A new bill is seeking to establish a new professional body that will be responsible for training, registering, and licensing of bankers.
Who does it now? Kenya bankers. Who does it now?
Yeah, you see now, bankers, they come from everywhere. I don't know.
I honestly don't know either.
Yeah,
we'll look at that story.
They have, when bankers have these exams, because bankers do have exams.
They do.
Who certifies those exams?
And they have, what are they called? What's the word for when you keep stepping up your, refresher course? Refresher.
Continuous.
Thank you.
It's called
There's something. There's
professional.
Continuous learning.
Something.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Well,
They don't do it.
They don't.
That's basically what we are saying.
Okay.
Okay?
they don't do it.
Currently, Kenya lacks a formal centralized professional body dedicated specifically to the regulation, training, and certification of bankers. As a result, professional development in the banking sector is often managed by individual banks or through industry associations.
Like Kenya Bankers Association.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not so certain. So this certification that people get in banking, that when you move from stage 1 to 2, they are saying there's no uniform thing like
There's
this,
not- there's
like the
nothing.
ones which accountants have.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Okay.
There's no one body that regulates bankers, like we have the lawyers, we have the accountants and such. Okay. City, tell us what you have in the Star and the People Daily.
Right. What I have in the Star, there is no top right hand corner until green today.
No way.
I am just telling you, it's not there today. All right.
The Star has changed.
The Star has changed.
Okay.
Hillside tragedy, police focus on electrical fault. Okay? This is the story of the Hillside and Russia Academy fire in Nyeri, okay, which claimed the lives of 21 pupils. Call to camp, additional 600 elite officers trained for Haiti mission. Okay? It's called Haiti. Haiti.
Haiti, bwana.
Haiti. That Haiti is okay, but it's not Haiti. Odinga. In future, host China-Africa summit in Africa. Okay. Then bang in the middle of the paper, fix. CS announced formation of 2 committees. Will we never hear the end of these committees?
Nope.
To review funding model?
That's just...
Ogamba's agony as crisis rocks education sector. My goodness. Hillside fire has exposed incompetence of quality assurance. Well, you know, this is a ministry thing. Yeah? Okay. Reason for discontent, lecturer strike. Then there's a picture of students saying power to the people and power to the comrades. Lecturer strike, school fires, varsity demos, university funding model split in Kupet over teacher strike. Hey, it's raining, isn't it?
It is.
Pouring, isn't it?
And the old man is snoring.
Yeah. Well, that is on the headlines of the Star. Now, the People Daily. Why Ishungwa is the bad boy of the mountain. The story of
Murima.
7 Kijana Baya from the Murima. While not riding on national stage, majority leader retreats to enclave to play parochial politics. Hey. Why does this thing not sound positive?
Ile Parroquio.
All right. Inside the battle for projects in Parliament, there's such a thing. Athlete ran towards neighbor while ablaze. This is the sad story of that lady who was burned to death. And anyway. Bang in the middle of, they also have a bang in the middle paper. A nation moans. How state failed on school fire. Government did not implement measures by Auditor General on prevention of infernos in learning institutions. The story is on page 4 and 5.
Let's take that break. Tell us about the traffic. We will look at these stories in greater detail shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, it's coming in hot from the Thika Superhighway this morning, Garden City, then through towards, all the way through towards Pangani Underpass. There's traffic this morning. It's bumper to bumper, really heavy as you then get towards that Pangani tunnel. There's some traffic on the Northern Bypass. It's probably going to seep through towards Kiambu Road. So that's all what to watch for now. And on Gong Road, there's traffic then coming through towards the city. Also, let's take a look at what's coming on the Eastern Bypass, and not much for now, but we know that's going to clog up. And then outer ring in and outbound traffic as you then get past further towards the Donholm rail stop. There is some traffic here as well. Kangunda Road from the jump, traffic this morning, in and outbound traffic as people coming in from Jiru, trying to make their way through towards the city, going towards the Thika Superhighway or towards North Airport Road and then out towards Cabanas. It's a Monday morning and things are already starting to look elephant. But we'll see, and you'll talk to us, won't you? SpiceFM, KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
As much as it breaks my heart to discuss children who died in a fire or any other kind of death, we have to look at this. Unanswered queries as detectives seek to crack Endarasha fire mystery. Now, detectives are piecing together information expected to unravel the mystery behind the dormitory fire that left 21 children dead at Hillside and Darasha Academy in Nyeri County. The bodies were moved to Naramora Level 4 Hospital mortuary for post-mortem examination and DNA tests to establish the identities of the deceased. Now, government pathologist Johansen Odur yesterday said the DNA tests would begin today. Yesterday, workers at the mortuary were rushing against time, trying to beat the Monday deadline when pathologists are expected to start the exercise. The mortuary has been under construction and is yet to be complete, but that's where they are anyway. There are lingering questions on the cause of the fire and how the 21 miners were burnt to death. Although the cause has not been established, there are claims that an electrical bulb exploded, igniting the fire. The school management has remained mum since the tragedy. However, there are parents who have disputed the theory, saying that on Thursday during the day, there were murmurs of unrest among the learners. A parent who spoke to the nation on condition of anonymity, citing the sensitivity of the matter, said the information she got from her son, who is a day scholar, might shed light on the cause. Now, remember, this is a mixed day and boarding school, okay? She said her son, a pupil in grade 7, informed her that at around 4 p.m. Thursday, some pupils spent a lot of time in the dormitory discussing some issues which were unusual. The children spent several hours in the dorm, and my son told me that there was anxiety over unknown reasons. The normal procedure for children going to the dormitory during the day is well spelt out. They go there in the company of the matron and pick up whatever items they want and go back immediately. Why was this rule breached, she asked. The parent also said that about 10 p.m. there is a child who called his parents and told them that a fire had broken out. The question we're asking: who was the owner of that phone, and who is this parent who was called? We know very well that children don't have access to phones, and duly so under strict supervision.
So how do we know there's a parent who was called?
This is the thing. Which parent, in order for somebody to say they were the person must have said, I was actually called, right?
So you can know,
So you can know who the parent is. We want this parent to come out and give information to investigating agencies as to so that we establish what happened. Homicide detectives led by Director Martin Nyuguto also continued with the search of more evidence at the scene of the tragedy, as the government said 17 children were still unaccounted for. Now remember, this number has ballooned to 46 because there are parents who say we cannot find our children, and there's of course school which is saying there's some children that are unaccounted for, and they're placing this against the register. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua on Friday said that 70 children were missing, adding that they were hosted by residents on the night of the tragedy when they ran away to escape the flames. So, which is understandable as well. That there's some who took off,
but this is
went
Thursday.
To shelter.
There's Friday, there's Saturday, there's Sunday. Surely a system that works will be able to account.
No, but even then, even the children who are said to have run to said house, if somebody runs into your house, you would have woken up the next morning and said, okay, I have 2 children here.
Yeah.
You know.
That's what I'm saying. If a system works,
Yeah.
it would be very, very possible for you to then account and start saying, okay, so we are continuing to do a roll call. So how many children were in this dormitory? Who are those children who are housed in this particular dormitory? Can we account for all of them? So where are they? If there's any that's in the neighborhood, they can tell that they're in the neighborhood. They can come back to school. Because if you are housing a child who ran away from the fire, the next thing you want to do is take them
give
to
the
school.
information.
Yeah. So they can then be reunited with their family.
Their family.
But look at this story that's in the Standard. That's giving the various accounts of various children who are missing. For example, Travis Karaoke, an orphan whose parents died when he was only 3 months, is among 46 pupils who cannot be accounted for after the Thursday inferno. The 12-year-old pupil, who was in grade 7, was enlisted at the school at pre-primary and called the school his second home. His guardian and uncle is restless and unsettled as he keeps visiting the institution seeking to get a response on the whereabouts of this child. Then there's the story of Angeline Wamboi. Her son, Robinson Deuri, who is in grade 6, has not been traced since the inferno. While Wamboi is at a crossroads on why his son, who has memorized her phone number, has not called her, and wonders which parent could still be accommodating a pupil whose parent is in distress, she still hopes that her son will emerge from somewhere alive. When you hear 46 are missing, and this is so many hours later, it raises very many questions about a system that's completely broken.
Yep.
These are children, they were in a school. If they ran away because of the fire, they sought refuge somewhere, then they're within their neighborhood, they're within that village. Even the chief can just be going door to door. Do you have a child? Do you have a child? Pick the child.
I think it would be necessary. It would be mandatory to have that kind of thing happening.
I mean, these are basic
This
things.
basic that you would say.
And even if somebody, just like Angelina Wambo is saying here, if a parent is actually housing a child and they know that this child is completely distraught, was in that fire, the next thing they do is take them to the school or to the administration and say, this child came. This child maybe is so traumatized, he's not able to speak. Or this child is actually speaking and saying, this is his name and this is the child.
It doesn't make sense.
Let's take them to a hospital. If some children then ended up in hospitals are just there in the neighborhood. I mean, the state has conflicting figures on what exactly happened, because the state is saying what we have the bodies that were collected from this fire, the remains, and we have those that were in hospital, those that have then since passed away. And we have a total of 21 who are confirmed dead. The question is, these parents who are looking for their children, what does the government have to tell them? How can children go missing? How?
No, I'm sorry. I think there's just too many questions that are unanswered. And there's actually a comment here from Erica Ward, which actually makes me think that if the children who are said to have run from the flames, because that action makes sense, that if there's somebody who ran out, where did they run through? Did they run through a gate? Was there a watchman there?
Where exactly did they run?
Where did they run? Did they scale a fence? What happened?
Let's even say that they did all those things.
Yeah.
You know, it's a
Scaled
moment.
a fence, left, but they went to a house.
They went somewhere.
They went somewhere. And they went somewhere where there are other human beings.
Well,
one would assume, because they're not hiding out in the thicket somewhere, they must have gone to shelter.
let me throw a little fat into this fire. I'm looking at page 24 of the Star, and this is an article written by a gentleman called George Owiti. He says, 7 Machakos schools closed. Okay, this is not last year. This is the last week. At least 7 public secondary schools in Machakos County have been closed indefinitely in the last week after school fires triggered school students' unrest. And he even mentioned the schools. The school affected are Machakos County, including Mumbuni girls, Mutetheni girls, Masi girls, Machakos School, Nyayo girls, Masinga boys, and Mtituni Secondary. Dormitories were raised in Lukenya Girls Center of Excellence, Nyayo Girls and Masi Secondary Schools in Athi River, Kalama and Mwala sub-counties respectively, while the other schools reported unrest. So, children were sent home. There were these fires. There was a problem, and of course the town, the MP, the Machakos Town MP had a thing to say. Somebody else had a thing to say. People always have a thing to say when these things occur. But for a moment there we thought that these fires were a thing of the past.
They're not, apparently.
There is a department, the Ministry of Education, that is supposed to deal with this quality checks, this quality assurance, ensuring that these things are done. It's not just a question of whether the building will stand.
Or whether your curriculum is on.
No.
Top
Is that are those buildings, are the domes fit for human habitation? Have they taken the necessary safety precautions? And this comes in the wake of the Auditor General saying, these schools that we have a problem here. There are certain minimum standards that schools must have, and many schools don't have them.
Well,
so then what will we do here?
I mean, one of the few things I agree with Wilson Sossion about is the things that he talks about when it comes to quality assurance, that there is no system of quality assurance, and it is across board that we're talking about. Who's making sure that there's a connection between this dot and the next dot? That in the event of a tragedy, that you preempt something like that from happening, and you just ensure that all these checks and balances are in place. And I think it is really unfortunate that we start to talk about these things when there's a tragedy. When there's a tragedy is when we remember that there ought to be quality assurance.
There was that whole exercise that was conducted by Magoha.
Yes, there was.
Right?
Yeah.
After the tragedy in
Precious Talent.
Yes, Precious Talent School, right? And they went across the country and they said, all right, so we are closing some schools, you need to do something, you need to do this and the other.
I said we are still waiting for the October 30th, 2021 report. Till today.
There are so many issues here. You know, if you think about some serious companies, they have very, very stringent safety measures that are in place, including regular drills, including making sure that everything is, safety first. And you'd expect that this is the kind of thing that we then take to schools, for example, and hospitals. Safety first. How do we ensure that there is proper safety measures that have been taken? How do we even ensure that even just the basics, drills and teaching the children? Do the children know in the event of a fire, this is the fire assembly point?
Exactly.
This is what to do. This is how you get out of
where
it.
to
This
go.
is in the event of any kind of emergency, this is how you do. Are there such kind of drills that are done in schools? These are times that these conversations need to start happening. But then people have to answer questions, starting with Dr. Belio Kipsang, the PS, going into the Director of Basic Education, in all those other officers under him. Because these things are happening too often and they are painful.
These
when
are
we are talking
children.
about 21
Children.
children who have died. When
These
you're
are
going into
children.
3 days of national mourning
man.
because of such kind of thing, answers are a must.
It's too much to have a tragedy like this. I'm sorry. Remember, when Precious Talent happened, it was heartbreaking. It was horrific to see. And then we saw other things happening after that. But for us to say that 21 children, I mean, the horror of dying in a fire. And I'm sorry to say, for something that if you had these checks and balances in place, it is possible for such things to be avoided.
Yeah, and often we bring in the issue of student unrest. It's unruly children. It's because of exams. I mean, we have been seeing fires in secondary schools, and they've been attributed to student unrest because exams, because these teenagers are.
There's always a reason being given. Yes,
these are young children.
Grade 5, grade 6, grade 7.
Yes.
Yeah. Grade 5, grade 6, they're not sitting.
And there's no
GCSE.
issue here. Well, there's a story there that was mentioning, there were questions being asked here. Maybe there was unrest.
Maybe there was something.
Okay.
But
can we then ask the question, Eric? What was the unrest about?
yeah, I mean, I actually don't think, I'm not really certain that I want to take that angle of the unrest. In this particular case, apana.
See, why I'm asking about it is because it's used so often, and one never tells us what you don't. You just hear
it's
unrest.
unrest.
See, I'm reading here unrest. Okay, what caused it? Because if you are saying, because the suggestion here seems to be that because there was unrest,
Then somebody
may
lit a
have caused a fire. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So
It was arson.
yes. So what was the complaint about? If they were,
If that was the thing, should it not have come out? Or is somebody keeping mum for the sake of it? No. No.
So it's safer for us to go back to factory settings where we don't talk, we don't
Yeah.
discuss,
Meanwhile-
we don't do anything that we ought to do.
Mr. Ogambaman has decided to form 2 committees to kick the can down the road, basically. So, President forms Working Party on Education Reforms. Working Party comes up with a report. A report has an implementation matrix. We even had a conversation here with the President's advisor on education.
Yes, we did.
And we asked, this report, because many of the timelines in the implementation of that report were 1 year, 6 months to 1 year. We were like, are you sure this is doable? And they said, yes, it's doable. Are you sure you're going to be able to actually actualize these things? Yes, we're going to be able to actualize these things. We are clearly seeing, from just one example, university funding, nothing was done. It was clear that the means testing was not good. It was clear that people were not going to be able to be categorized properly, and it's happening now. So people come and say, this is what we want. This is the challenge that we are facing. And the president does a town hall to assuage the students and tell them, this is the thinking behind it. The thinking is one thing. The implementation is the other. The president does not address the implementation bit. And the implementation is what is making the students say, despite the president doing town hall and all these things, we are going on strike because there is no solution. You're basically forcing us and saying it's a good idea, so it must work. It's not a good idea.
And it's not working.
It's not working. What does the CS do?
working.
The CS now says, I am going to form 2 committees. 2 committees to look at and include the students in this, so we can look, is the means testing working? Is the bursary working? Are we going to categorize? Is the categorization
You don't need a committee
working?
to tell you. It is very clear.
But that's what the
it is
students
not
are saying. It's not working.
It's not working. Now you want to form a committee to come and tell you what we already know right now. We've told you it's not working. It's not working. The means testing is not working. The categorization of need is not working. It is not working. So, can you just set up a fund like you had with HELP before? If people want to be able to get access to funds for school, they go to HELP, they get access. Fund the thing, people go to school, we keep it moving. Why do you want to categorize more needy, most vulnerable in order for them to get money or not get money? What are we talking about?
The wearer of the shoe has told you where it pinches.
They've told you.
So,
and they've also told you that what you had before was working for them. So why can't we just continue with what was happening? Why fix if it ain't broke?
well, that's what we do.
Hey.
Especially with the education system, we tinker with it. We tinker with it so badly. Like with this CBC, we are now second year where you cannot say that some students have been learning.
Yeah.
There was a year that just went.
Kids
Especially
that were in
grade 7. Grade 7 in
grade
2023, 2024. They're now in grade 8.
See?
They're still not learning.
Yes. And the talk we spoke of is still there. The government is seeking to employ more teachers. So,
my head is aching.
you know,
We have screwed up our education system
how do you let
Then you
this
go to the
systematically
committee.
over so many years.
Who was it that said they're going to form another task force core committee now to solve or to sort out the problems in the education
But the 844 may have had problems, but it was working. Was it not working?
You know, I actually think it's good. It's good to review. It's good.
We must review.
It's good to review even this university funding model. It's good to discuss it and to review it. The problem always comes with Kenyans. We are very good at talking, but when it comes to doing, we don't do it. If this thing had clearly been thought through and said, all right, so this is how we want to do it. We want to have a funding model where there is a scholarship, there's a loan, and then there is out of pocket. Right? That's fine. Because that's what has been happening anyway. There's been a scholarship which is called the differentiated unit cost. That was a scholarship. There was HELP and there was out of pocket, and many people were paying the out of pocket from the HELP loan that they received. Okay, sawa. Now you want to make it a bit better, but can you take time to work on it? Can you take time to actually work on it before you say our go date is this? Everything is aligned. It's the same thing that's happening in health. Oh, NHIF to SHA.
If you need surgery,
they have not worked out this thing to the letter so that it can work.
You know, when changes come about, even if we're talking about the education system, there was no help before. Okay, you went to college, you're given boom. Out of pocket meant for you to buy what? Books.
Yeah.
So you study, isn't it? Then after that, if you work for the government, they started cutting or deducting their money immediately. I know because mine was deducted immediately, studiously for 10 years. Okay, because I worked for the government continuously for 10 years. When they brought help in, the number of people who were then coming to go into the university had increased. We had increased the capacity because more universities were being built, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you hear anybody kicking a fuss about help? No. It made sense.
Help was still working.
Yes.
What was not working now was this other element, which is the differentiated unit cost.
Yes.
The taxpayer-funded side of it, what is now being called scholarship. Now, it's the same thing. It's just a different name. Because of the differentiated unit cost,
yes,
government is supposed to be putting aside X amount of money. Government does not even do half of that.
You know, there is this need, it appears, by every new government we have in this country to show that they are doing something new. But the cost is actually tremendous. Change doesn't necessarily need an overhaul. Change needs just to be there. Tell us, this is working, this bit we're going to change. Like when you listen to this NHIF thing, the thinking is actually quite nice.
Yeah.
The categorization is actually very nice.
Yes.
This
It
one
looks
is
great.
it sounds beautiful. But we asked the question, Eric, when you're away, has this thing been piloted?
Hasn't.
Do we know how and where it works and what needs to be changed?
What did Dr. Martinez tell you?
That they don't need a pilot. That they already know.
Do you know this thing?
We know these things. It's the why pilots? Why do you need a pilot?
And say, but how then can you know if it works or doesn't work if you don't pilot it?
Meanwhile, the thing that they piloted
Was a
which
different whole
UHC,
thing.
in 4 counties was a whole different thing completely. That is what was actually piloted.
Yep.
That they would be able to see what works or doesn't work. Nyeri, Isiolo, Machakos, Kisumu. It was piloted.
We told different stories. You see, the thing about piloting, as in research, there's nothing like bad news. It just tells you
The
this
real
is what is
situation.
happening. This is it.
There's no water, we can't run you.
So if you want to, yes,
There's
so if
no power here,
we can't
cannot.
run you. See, so if you want to make a decision, you have, and you know why they chose those different places, because they represented the different terrains and different places that we have. Now, once the results have explained to you what you can't do and what you can do,
Then you build around that.
then no, they just halted it. They didn't.
Yeah, but they say, okay, done.
We never focus on doing things. We come up with brilliant ideas. We come up with a brilliant idea of how to equip hospitals. Then we bring in entrepreneurship into it. We come up with a brilliant idea of how to fund universities. We bring entrepreneurship into it. We come up with an idea of how to roll out UHC. We bring in. Everybody's just thinking, nitakulia wapi kwa hii kitu. We must fix this country. I mean, this is just too much nonsense.
It doesn't matter where you
Too
live.
much.
It's hitting you in the face. Proper.
These children who have died ought not to have died. If things were actually working, then we'd be having even better numbers and even answers. We cannot be saying 46 children are missing. How can 46?
Don't know. And
How?
we don't know.
How?
We don't know.
Posey, 7 a.m. news.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. And Njia Boys Secondary School in Igembe, Meru County, is on fire. This event comes as police are still pursuing a theory of bulb explosion as the main cause of fire at Hillside and Arasha Academy in Nyeri that claimed the lives of 21 pupils. Sleuths say the account given by the pupils indicate the sparks from the exploded bulb landed on a mattress and started the fire that spread fast. The investigators say the electrical fault theory will bring them back to the question of how well the dormitory facilities at the institution are maintained. The dormitory was housing grade 5 to grade 8 pupils. This event comes as the government yesterday led in an exercise that saw the affected families receive humanitarian assistance and counselling.
Whenever we go through what we have gone through, there are always many questions that we ask. In theology, we call it the problem of evil, because when such a disaster strikes, children die. That is evil that has visited us. We call it the problem of evil. In complicated theology, we call it theodicy. Theodicy is the problem of evil. And I want to tell you that it has never been adequately answered by theologians. Where is God when evil is happening? You know the story of Job, who lost his entire family, who lost all his property.
And according to a report is that from the Auditor General is that there is inadequate infrastructure, limited training and fire safety preparedness and insufficient guidance and counselling in schools. A report that sampled 42 schools dotted in 5 counties revealed that the majority of the schools do not have the equipment to handle a fire incident, while with schools required to have sufficient fire extinguishers, fire alarms and fire blankets. Most of them also happen to be ill-prepared to handle fires. A majority of sampled schools, according to the report, allocated the least fire extinguishers to halls with no fire assembly points in schools. The special audit on school fires revealed that some schools were not constructed in accordance with the required safety standards. Machakos Governor Wavinya Ndeti has come out with guns blazing against viral claims that she and her son Charles Oduale have been arrested in the United Kingdom while attempting to bank hundreds of millions of shillings. In a TAS press conference marked for immediate release and posted in her official Facebook page, the Machakos governor warned that those driving the online smear campaign against her and her family will face the full force of the law. The online publications, which generated a vicious traction in the local internet space, sent shockwaves across Machakos and the entire country, with many citizens wondering how the alleged haste involving such a huge sums of money could be sneaked through major airports. And more than 600 personnel reported to police training camps for a short training ahead of deployment to Haiti. They'll join more than 400 police officers who are already engaged in combating gangs in the capital of the city. And the selected officers reported to different camps for combat training before they met in Nairobi. They'll meet in Nairobi for a week, then break to their homes ahead of departure. The deployment will increase to more than 1,000, the number of personnel on the UN-supported security mission in the Caribbean. And finally, the funeral for Ugandan Olympic runner Rebecca Cheptegei, who died in Kenya after being set on fire by her boyfriend, will be held this Saturday in her home country, Buko. The 32-year-old who competed in the women's marathon at the Paris Olympics last month succumbed to severe burns on Thursday last week, 4 days after being doused with petrol and set alight at her home in western Kenya. Cheptegei's death was greeted with anger and sorrow, the latest horrific act of gender-based violence in the country, where at least 2 other athletes have lost their lives at the hands of their partners. That's the news wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Coming on e-teams, they say, okay.
Okay, so what are we looking at in traffic this morning? It's bound to be a busy Monday. Let's take a quick look. Coming off the Eastern Bypass, it has started to build up. And also on Jogo Road, traffic building up through towards Landis. That's already doing the thing. The Thika Superhighway heavy with traffic coming in all the way from, Githurai. And before that, Kahawa, Sukari, traffic is coming in all the way hot through towards Garden City and then out towards, it's through and through towards the Pangani Underpass. Your service lanes are going to help at some point, but then you get to Survey and that all comes to an end and you have to go trickle through to the city. Also on Kiambu Road, we saw some traffic on the Northern Bypass. It's all feeding towards Kiambu Road now. Limuru Road is also busy coming in through Muthaiga. We will see traffic coming in from Lower Kabete out to out from Spring Valley. So that will continue for some time. Wayaki Way is already busy as well. A quick look at Gong Road shows traffic coming in heavy from Naivasha Road. It's spilling over towards Kingara Road, Gitanga Road, and then out towards James Gishuru. It's busy this morning and it started early. Let's see what happens as we get into traffic hour, but it's likely to be a busy Monday. Wits about, folks, and let's talk Spice FM. KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's good to be back. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, on Spice FM, on KTN Home, on YouTube and Facebook and X and everywhere else that we're live stream this show. For those who are watching us, Karibuni Sana. This is one of the 3 days of national mourning that were declared by the president following this tragedy at the Hillside and the Russia Academy. Children died. So far, 21 confirmed dead. Story that we are seeing, the headline, the Standard this morning is that we still have 46 who are unaccounted for. What does that mean? Are they missing? Whatever is happening there, there's basically pain and anguish for very many families who were parents and guardians in this school. And we take a moment, when we'll be doing this every hour, to just say our condolences to the families, to the school community at Hillside and Russia. It's a sad one. We want to start our conversation this hour with talking about corruption and the costs of corruption in this country. when we talk about corruption, we say corruption. It's become a buzzword, okay? And so we have invited Cyprian Nyamwamu, who is the spokesperson of the Kenya Bora Tuitakayo movement, to join us for this one. Cyprian, good morning.
Good morning, Eric, City and Ndu. Let me also just this morning express my deepest, really, condolences and to the parents and the families that have lost their loved ones, especially the children that they have lost there in Hillside in Russia. This is the highlight of national sadness and failure, really, when you look at it, because the age of the children involved is they are very young.
Yeah.
These are very, very, very young children, and I mean, people are shedding tears literally across the country. Yesterday in the morning, we were just with the children, and we were just imagining what this looks like, and it is beyond what words can capture. Really, the sadness.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. City,
Yeah.
why don't you give us the day's proverb? You said this week we're in the final country.
The Federal Republic of Somalia. Okay. Yes, a very interesting country with a very, 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 very rich history. One does not tell a man, go away. One shows one what he must do.
One does not tell a man, go away.
Kwenda.
One shows the man what he must do.
That's what we call the writings on the wall. If captured in other words, that the writings on the wall, and it is for you to do what you need to do to leave. Your time is up. You have not performed what was expected of you. You've not worked as a diligent worker, faithful worker. And it's related to the corruption conversation we're having this morning. Instead of being faithful and a steward, you've failed. So I mean, normally you are told what to do, which is a lot of the time what we say in Kenya. Do the right thing, which is quit, leave. So that's when you are told what to do. You are not told go, but you are told what to do. I mean, that's how I would like to capture it.
You put it well.
That's an interesting interpretation.
I know.
A very interesting one. Corruption, Cyprian. I mean, we talk about corruption all the time. But recently what we have seen is that people have started internalizing what corruption is. And Ndu has said this very many times. Until the moment people start saying, it's because of this that I am not able to get these services. It's because of corruption that I'm not able to get these services. This is where the money that should have come to, for example, ensure that we have a good and properly working education system. This is where the money went instead of going into that system. Yeah. People have started now seeing over and over increasingly this, but there's still a lot of unexplained corruption.
It's especially, let me capture it, if you permit me, this way, that the reason people are coming to the point where they can't live with corruption is because corruption in the past never used to affect people directly. Let me explain. The Kenyatta years, there was a lot of land to grab. So people used to hear of stories out there of land is being grabbed and it's being taken by the big boys. And people said, fine, I mean, they have not taken my land anyway. Then came the Moi years, and Moi started to strip assets from parastatals. So every parastatal, including Kenya Commercial Bank and others, were being stripped. You would be told, go to that parastatal, go to that bank, take a 20 million loan, and you don't have to pay. And people used to hear of debts that were not being paid. And so corruption was still a distant thing. The healthcare system was working, the education system, we call them the Big Eight. The Big Eight were working. Then came Kibaki, revived the economy, and introduced another form of corruption, Anglo-leasing, turnkey projects, which were financed by EPNs, irrevocable promissory notes. And the people still were hearing about companies being registered in London and in other places, and the people paying themselves billions of shillings. And people said, well, that's too much money, we can't relate with it. Because things were still working. And Kibaki brought back free primary education. There are two things if you supply in this country, people don't quarrel with you. Because education work is working, schools are opening and the children are learning, they are going to university and they are looking for their own ways of living. And the healthcare system. People are going to the hospital and they are being treated. So the Kibaki era corruption did not affect people in a way that they could be able to explain it to themselves. Then came the Uhuru Kenyatta years, when things now started to collapse. The Uhuru Kenyatta years, where he was with the current president, Ruto, is that there was no land to steal, there were no parastatals to strip, there were no turnkey projects to concoct and enrich yourself. So they actually created a new form of corruption, which is design fictitious projects, borrow money in that name, and don't do the projects. Basically pay yourself, enrich yourself directly, so that Kenyans pay for you. And that is why currently, and as you know, nearly out of every 100 shillings we collect, nearly 80 shillings goes to paying for debt. What has happened? Now, you are only left with 20 shillings out of every 100 to finance education, healthcare, social protection, security, infrastructure, everything. You can't do that.
And still steal.
And still steal. So what has happened is that the services have collapsed. And what else? And that's the final thing that Kenyans need to note. What else has happened is that the population now has risen to over 54 million people. And the tragedy of that is that 18 million adults are unemployed. 18 million adults are unemployed. During the Moi years, practically everybody was employed. You used to graduate from university and you are posted somewhere as a DO, as an agriculture officer, as something. There was no unemployment in levels that we are talking about now. So you are stealing the little of the 20 that has remained when services are not being provided and the people are dying in hospitals. Schools are not getting capitation money. University students don't have school fees to pay. So that you are stealing when everybody is saying that you are the one who has actually stolen, and it's because of your stealing that I'm not going to university. That because of your stealing and you are looting, that we are unable to pay salaries, that we are unable to provide healthcare in hospitals. And it is because of your stealing that there's no infrastructure that is being built. So that is what the variables over the 60 years that have made corruption so completely unacceptable. And the other thing that is that technology has now made it possible for people to report from everywhere in Kenya, and people are starting to actually relate that the road in their ward that has not been built is because somebody actually was paid money for a road they did not do.
Why do it in the open, Cyprian? Because I would think it would be so foolhardy of 1 or 2 or 3, 10 people to do this in the open. Just going back to what you've said, that, here we are saying, so we borrow money and set up a fictitious project and then later abandon it. It's in the open. If you're going to launch a road, what are we launching? Bridge, all kinds of things happening all over the place. In the plain sight of everybody. Why do that? Why do it in the open just to steal the money? Don't you realize that somebody will figure it out later?
No. Because over the years, people have said, it's actually Mwai Kibaki who said it. Kenyans will demonstrate for a week, maybe 2 days, and they will go back home. But what the Gen Zs have shown us is that the demonstrations are not for a day. They are not even for a week. And so when Ruto came to power in September 2022, he believed that what they did under Mwai Kibaki and under Uhuru was still going to work. What they have discovered in 2024 is that they crossed the red line many years ago, except that Kenyans had not found a way to rally themselves around this problem of corruption. And so you are going to see from June 25th, as we call it, the June 25th revolution, that it is now not acceptable that you can be able to steal people's money and go home. If you look at the number of members of parliament who were attacked, whose homes were attacked, whose family details were exposed, even if it's unethical, it tells you that Kenyans have already reached a place where they are sending a very clear message that we are going to come to parliament, we will come to state house, we will come to where the corrupt people are hiding. That is what has changed. And the people still believed under Ruto that Ruto is such a bully, he is such a dangerous guy, nobody is going to stand up to him. They actually believe that he's a superhuman. That's why members of parliament used to tell us, well, what can we do? We know. I mean, what can you stop Ruto? That's what they used to ask us. They used to ask us, you think that you can really stop Ruto from passing his finance bill if he wants? So they believed that he was superhuman. And now they have realized that even William Ruto is not superhuman. People are going to have to take personal responsibility, and they will not blame William Ruto for it.
Is the problem at leadership or is the problem a societal issue? When we say corruption, if you look at then the advent of devolution in 2013 and what we have seen in terms of corruption and widespread corruption, just mismanagement of funds in devolved units. Over 1,500 elected members of county assemblies are among the bigger beneficiaries of corruption in counties. Many of them are newly elected. Many of them are youth. And they go into office and they look at that opportunity. What is it? Is it a travel? Is it some training somewhere? Where can we just get money? Is it some car grant? Where can we get money? If you look at their governors and the number of governors that have been in office that have been accused of corruption, or that just audit reports are raising issues on how money was spent, and then you look at the community and the society where they come from, you ask yourself, is this a leadership issue or is it a society issue? Is it that the expectation is because you have become MCA of our ward, the next thing we expect you to do is start building a house, my friend. If you don't build a house, what kind of
when we were here, when the Embakasi gas explosion happened, we summarized this very clearly. Again, I'm coming here days after the tragedy of Russia. We summarized it that it is a governance failure problem. It is the quality of citizens that are driving this failed governance, and that all of this comes down to leadership. Leadership is what determines the governance that happens in a society. But actually, it is the quality of citizenship that determines leadership, which then determines governance. So those three things exist together. And to answer your question directly, those three things are the problem and they are together. The question is, where do we start from? Always that's the question. During that period, the Gen Zs are not happened. You've seen that when the Gen Zs have risen, the quality of citizenship has gone up and the demand on leadership has increased and the governance is starting to change. So it is the quality of citizenship that actually the Morara Kebasos, the Omtatas, the Kenyabora Tuitakayos, the people who are going to court, who are challenging the governors, the quality of your citizens is what determines the quality of leadership that you get or that is in place. And it also determines the kind of governance that they exercise when they are in office. So they are actually interconnected directly. And so our call always has been improve the quality of your citizenship, because then you will determine your destiny directly. Everybody who comes to office will know that it's not going to be a place where you are going to enrich yourself. That is the incentive that is lacking at the moment. So if we make it very difficult and make corruption very expensive, like we are starting to make it now, what's going to happen is that only those who are publicly spirited are going to seek office. And the the washers and the money launderers and the drug dealers and all these types will stay very far away from leadership, because the public is going to be on their case almost weekly. And that is how you change your country. That's what's happening right now. And I promised you this when we were here during that period of the Embakasi gas explosion. I told you, I am in the counties, the country is changing, and you are going to see it. I actually promised you.
You know, the change is incremental. So a lot of the times, if we were to pinpoint the point at which a certain dramatic change occurred, we focus on the change or the dramatic events. But we sometimes don't bear in mind where it is that it started. But even more interesting, we sometimes can actually tell where it will end, but it seems so far away. End here being, if we have never seen people who have been involved in stealing from state coffers being brought to book, it is understandable why anybody else who then follows us and is in a state job or is in a position of authority will steal, because they don't see the consequence, or they believe that they can always get away with it. Now, the protest that started in June had been coming, we just had not seen it taking the form that it took. And because there are no more demonstrations, there are those who argue that it has come to an end, and actually it hasn't. If anything, I'd be more afraid because of the silence. That is what I'd be fearful, and I'd be saying, okay, what on earth could be fermenting? Because something was tried out, they saw a response, they now know that this is how the state will respond. So if they were to protest, they will not do the same things they did again, because they know the consequences of it. But the real question is, those whom we have elected into positions of political authority and those who are in charge of our lives and who are in government, have they understood that actually change is with us? Not that it's coming, it is actually here and it's resident. Do you think they understand it?
I interact with a lot of them, the people who are in office today. I interact with a lot of them. What happened in June was unexpected. I already said that earlier. People believe that under William Ruto, you are not going to say mwe. You will be crushed. What they didn't know is that 4 things had changed, and those things that have changed is what caused the June 25th, revolution as we saw it. I already discussed them. We have discussed the demographic changes, the population that has changed. Eric, when I was voting, when I voted the first time in 1997, young people below the age of 40% or 40 years who were casting the ballot that year, we were only 26%. The young people who are going to vote in 2027 below the age of 40 are going to be 68%. So that time we used to be disregarded. The youth are inconsequential. Just speak to their parents and we will sort out this politics. And that's what used to happen. 2027, it is the young people's election. They are the ones who are going to say who they want and who they do not want. That is the first thing that has changed very significantly. Technology has revolutionized this society. And that is something that you cannot be able to ignore. The third thing is that we have a democratic constitution which is being defied, being violated. But it's actually a constitutional infrastructure which we did not have in our years when we were fighting against corruption and fighting for good governance. The Constitution of Kenya is a massive enabler for citizens, and the young people kept quoting sections of the Constitution during the Mandamano. So the Constitution is the third and very important tool and a shift which has enabled society to be what it is. The final one is the economy. I already spoke about it, that the economy is not favorable now. Those days, people would go back home and pick coffee and leave. But now, things have changed radically. And the levels of poverty and inequality are actually staggering. And so, that is why Ndu was asking, why are they doing it so blatantly? It's because there's nothing else to steal quietly. I've told you the things that were being stolen that time was land, was parastatals. There were things that were out there. But right now, there's nothing else to steal. So you have to go back and basically auction JKIA, auction KPLC, auction Kenyan, practically, because there's nothing else you are going to steal money from. That is the thing that has changed about the country, and it is why corruption is now so visible and so direct, because the blackouts are happening. We don't know whether we are going to the load shedding, circumstances that South Africa is in, and so on and so forth. So things are going to actually get very bad over the coming months because of these corrupt practices. And it is how you are going to see more Kenyans stepping out and saying, no way, it is enough, and it has to stop.
Let's take a break, Cyprian. When you come back, I'd like you to tell us what we call unexplained corruption. Define unexplained corruption, because I thought corruption it's corruption. Our conversation with Cyprian Nyamwambu this morning is on the cost of unexplained corruption in Kenya and what it is that we are seeing in the country. Cyprian is a spokesperson for the Kenya Bora Tutakayo movement. We'll be back shortly. It's 7:30.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
One of the things that are in our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can't run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
Cloudy conditions and the sun is peeking through those clouds with Nairobi with highs of 27. We'll see highs of 27 in a mostly sunny Nakuru at 15. It's also sunny at 13 in Nyeri with highs of 25, while Eldoret at 12 will go to highs of 24. The sun is up in Mombasa at 23 with highs of 29, and Monday we'll see highs of 29 as well in Malindi, where it is sunny at 24. 21 and sunny in Kisumu with highs of 31, while we'll see highs of 30 in a mostly sunny Kakamega at 17. Kampala is sunny at 18 with highs of 29, while at 24 Dar es Salaam is sunny going to highs of 29 as well. Johannesburg at 16 is sunny with highs of 26. Mogadishu at 26, sunny as well, going to highs of 31. And Addis Ababa at 13 is cloudy with highs of 21. It's clear in Lagos at 25 with highs of 30. And Kinshasa is cloudy at 22, going to highs of 32.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
All right, we're stepping into traffic hour, and it's quite busy in most parts of the city this morning. Inbound traffic from James Gishuru is coming in from Wayaki Way through towards the Mzima Springs Junction, and there we see some outbound traffic as well. Ring Road Westlands, crazy. Don't go if you don't need to. Wayaki Way is also bumper to bumper as you approach Westlands at the roundabout and then out towards Chiromo. That all is starting to be very crazy. Then take a look at the Thika Superhighway. Traffic like you haven't seen in a minute. It's heavy. It's bumper to bumper through and through from the Allsops Junction, and even before that, Garden City. Very heavy traffic as you then get out towards Pangani. Wangari Maathai Way all the way through to the Museums Junction. Very busy as well. Again, we are in traffic hour, and it's just going to get busier as we get closer to 8. Coming off of Jogo Road, busy as well. And there is Outer Ring. It doesn't matter where you are on Outer Ring. Donholm, getting towards Manyanja Road, Kangundo Road, and then out towards Allsops. Very busy. Spice FM, KE on X. Let's talk. Hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
So our
Nairobi.
conversation continues for the next 26 minutes with Cyprian Nyamwamu, who is a spokesperson for the Kenya Bora Tuitakayo movement. Cost of unexplained corruption in Kenya. What's unexplained corruption?
Unexplained corruption is something that actually we can trace back to 1999 when Professor Kibwana and Justice Smokin Wanjala, when they published a book called The Anatomy of Corruption. So it's about 350 pages, big book on the anatomy of corruption from the Center for Law, Clarion. And that anatomy of corruption took us through many countries. In Uganda, what we saw relating to this unexplained corruption is where Museveni and had sent the brother out of the country to register many companies with their friends. And these companies came back to Uganda as strategic investors.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, when you do things like that, people are not clear how you are doing the corruption. It's not clear to them. Because you have said that parastatals and all these things, there's even a public-private partnership, very high-sounding language. And in political economy, we call it the financialization of the economy. So once you start doing things like that, it is not very easy to say it is Minister so-and-so, it is Permanent Principal Secretary so-and-so, it is President Ruto who is doing it. It is just now when people are starting to know where the money from the expressway, for example, goes to. For every 10 shillings, who is collecting the money. So companies were registered out there. They became strategic investors. They built infrastructure. And you are now starting to see language like, let us build roads and let people pay for those roads. Then people are saying, privatize healthcare, privatize education, privatize agriculture. Then somebody comes, you have been seeing Bill Gates in this country. So people, they are saying, remove people from this Rift Valley place and let us now introduce monoculture through GMOs. So the thing about unexplained corruption is when public sector corruption is conducted through agents that people cannot be able to pin down government officials against. So somebody comes and says, Kenya Airways has failed. We cannot run it as a profitable company. So what happens? Then it is sold to a strategic investor, for example, and then you see that a public asset has gone. Minerals are happening in this country. and you don't know the corruption that is happening there. So it is how private actors are brought into the public sector corruption, which you cannot be able to pin on government officials of the day.
Can't pin, or you haven't taken the bother to actually find out how it actually works, or you don't have the means to find out how it exactly works. So I'm saying this because what you are discussing here is not new.
Not new.
No, because in the Moi era, with parastatals, African Tours and Hotels, I'll give you for an example, had hotels all over the country. What you'd see happening is the hotel would run down, or would be run down, to the point where its net value was much reduced, and then it would be sold off.
For a song, as we used to say.
That was a very shrill song, but it happened over and over and over again. How did we, for instance, get to a point where a national insurance company, which had a monopoly, how could that go belly up? Kenya National Insurance. How? I mean, they were guaranteed business, guaranteed. It went belly up. Posta. How did Posta, a monopoly, go bankrupt? A monopoly. There was nobody competing with them. How? So, in that era, we perhaps knew less, and as you say correctly, we were suffering, but the suffering wasn't this intense. 2, people were not that aware. 3, the mode of communication was not as robust as it is now. But we did see the consequences of technology coming in. Posta, for instance, lost big time when the handheld instruments came in. People abandoned landlines completely. We came back to selected landlines, but the business that they had and they had a monopoly of simply disappeared. Now, as for delivering letters and parcels, other players also came in. So that monopoly also went. Now, the issue of letters is a bit tricky. People very rarely post letters these days. Okay. So I am simply saying that if we were to look at what we have now, and this is where I sometimes fault our leaders, Kwani, don't they have imagination? Why are you duplicating things that we've seen in the past? Okay. If you must steal, at least be clever about it, so that it takes us a long time to figure this thing out. No, seriously. So by the time we're figuring it out, 10 years have gone by, I say, oh, this is what happened. But this one, it happens, and you know exactly what is happening. Our fear is if you speak about it, you will be followed. If you talk about it vigorously and even claim to have evidence, you will be jailed. That is what we fear. Or you might disappear altogether. Okay? Now, everything I've said is actually reminiscent of the Moi era. Everything I've just said, and the era before that. Yes.
So what is shocking, and that's why Eric is calling it unexplained corruption, is because of the way, for example, the Eurobond was done. For example, I'm just giving an example. So to explain to a countryman, to a citizen, that corruption has happened with the way this, borrowing has been done and been structured, is always very difficult. That's why it's unexplained. People cannot be able to understand how we are in this mess with all the constitution and its institutions. It's because the way the institutions have been structured is that they have been pushed out of the economy, so that you have inserted private players. You've brought them to healthcare. Like, for example, you remove NHIF and you bring in SHIF, and you insert four private companies in that space. And so people are actually contributing to private players, so that it is not like how parastatals used to be stripped before. This time, people are paying money to a citizen pay bill, for example, and we don't know who is collecting that money and where it is going to. So this is the kind of, I don't want to call it modernization of corruption, but it is how you've inserted private players in a way that it never used to happen under Moi. Because these private players, when you go to e-Citizen, you realize that there's actually a private player there who is doing it for... Let me give the last example of KPLC, and I think it will be very clear. KPLC is a monopoly which collects money from everybody in this country. You bring private players who are collecting the tokens at the back, and then at the end of the year, you say that we cannot be able to account for 88 billion shillings. That the tokens people was a French company, and another one was Turkish, and another one, I don't know which one, and we don't know where they were taking the money. How do you explain how you cannot be able to explain where the votes in the server went. Then we were told in court that people are sleeping, they are not open yet. Even this server is not even ours.
It's in Germany.
It's in France, I think. This one was from Venezuela and so on and so forth. Once you insert private players, even in America, they are dealing with it. How corruption is even going to elections is a completely new way of how things are being done by inserting private players. So you are told, take them to court, deal with them. And that is going to take you forever. And the public officials who actually facilitated them into the system are no longer even in power. And so you are looking for private players when it's actually the beneficiaries are the public officials who brought them into the system in the first place. And it is so subtle, yet it is more devastating than it has ever been. And this is about a global agenda of displacing governments and inserting, global private players who you cannot even account to. How do you even tax Google, for example? How do you tax this other company? They are all over the place. We are paying money to them. They are facilitating government and us. And then once they steal the money and run away with it, you cannot be able to reach them. But somebody at the back end has already taken his commission.
Do you think that, because right now, the way it looks is that folks who may have their hand in the cookie jar, or as I like to say, are well immersed in the cookie jar, are not really afraid of consequences because we do not see a consistent and continuous mechanism that deals with people who steal public funds. They're not taken, they're stolen. Or they don't just disappear, they're stolen. So there's that where nobody's really afraid because we don't see any kind of precedent having been set that is severe enough to stop anybody from going there in the future. At the same time, I think that there's a disconnect between really the dangers of corruption or the lack that it causes. We're not connecting between public funds that are stolen and then the ability for the citizen to live a livelihood that is at the very least dignified. When we're talking about shelter, we're talking about education and health and things like that. That we don't make the connection between this money that is stolen and the inability for you to survive. Do you think that if we did make that connection, then this fear that we hope that people who are in the public space would feel then would become a reality?
Oh, yes. In fact, that has been the missing link, and you have put your finger on it very directly. And I can predict now with a certain level of confidence that 2027, if we get there with this current government. When I said that in February, Eric was looking at me and wondering, what are you talking about? What are you saying that if we get to 2027 with this government? I think this government is going to run out of steam. It's going to run out of steam because the level of vigilance from the public and the ability to connect what Morara Kebaso is doing out there is started as a very innocent and a very mundane activity of going to visit projects, but now people are starting to connect it very directly because for every of these projects that have not been done, engineers have already issued certificates of completion, 60% completion, 70% completion. And people have cutted away 280 million, 1.3 billion, and all that kinds of money without any road being done. And so people are starting to say, no. It is better during the Moi days because people used to eat, but do something. They used to eat in the doing. These ones are looting and doing nothing about it.
But you see, that's where the problem is, Cyprian. You see, we accepted corruption, even in that statement that, you see, they were doing it even if they were eating. You see, that is already wrong.
That's why I'm going to 2027. And I'm saying what you are going to see in 27, and I can predict with a very high level of confidence, is that anybody who has been associated with corruption and anybody who has unexplained money is going to be in trouble in 2027. Because people have started to connect, like they did in the Asian countries, that your living large is at my expense. Your corruption is what has denied us school fees for our children.
Yes.
It is what has made hospitals not to have medication. It is the reason we sold land to take our mom to hospital in India. It is the reason we had to bribe to get our son to be employed. That connection is now being done. That it is because of your stealing. When you see people rejecting Arambes to churches, that is what is happening. People are starting to say, don't bring those public officials, those politicians to our churches because we know the money they are bringing is stolen money. This connection is being done. Now the connection is there, and where we are moving in the right direction as a country.
Do you think
the level of poverty and unemployment is what has made it necessary that people do civic education for themselves, even if government does not want them to do that? And largely, we are starting to see Kenyans saying, these are not our leaders, these are our dealers. These are dealers, not leaders. They are not leading us, they are not providing service. That connection is how the country is going to be liberated, is going to be lifted out of the current mess that we have been in for the last 6 years. Unfortunately, it may lead to public officials having to pay a very, very heavy price. And I can tell you that it may not happen next year, but we are going to see presidents going to jail. We are going to see members of the cabinet and members of parliament being jailed in this country, very, very soon.
When do you think we're going to get a critical mass? Because you're saying 2027. I'm actually asking, do you really believe that by 2027 we'll have a critical mass of people who influence change? And I'm saying that looking at what has happened, what was happening 2 months ago and what's happening now. 2 months ago, politicians were literally hiding. Yesterday, just look at their social media pages. They were all in church. They were speaking in church. They're no longer even hiding in the pulpits. And the congregation is the same. Yes, we have the likes of Morara Kebaso and others who are supporting him, and Boni Mwangi, who's just doing all these audits in the counties, and others who are emerging. But are we actually raising a critical mass of people who are woke enough and active enough to influence change?
I want to say very confidently, because I spend a lot of my time in the counties again, that the critical mass, we are going to have it if we don't have it already. People needed structure and they needed to be connected. That has been the missing link, and it's now being provided. Let me say this with a very, very high level of confidence now. In the city actually attributed to that what we are seeing with those people going back to church is actually a lull before the storm. People are waiting for one trigger. I don't want to tell you what that trigger is going to be. The trigger may even be Masengeli refusing to produce the abducted Kitengela 3. I don't know what the trigger is going to be. But if you are asking whether there's a critical mass in this country of people who cannot stand and look at a few individuals, most people do not know that we are dealing with 1% of the population. The people who are stealing are actually 1% of the population. They are not all of us. They are just 1% of the population. The critical mass of Kenyans who want change and are saying no to corruption has shot up so dramatically. The next trigger will sweep people out of office, and it will be written in books of history. I am so confident as I was in February when I was telling you that we are completely done with William Ruto. If you go to that clip in February, I told you, Kenyans are completely done with William Ruto. We are only waiting for a trigger, and the trigger was the finance bill.
So you say another trigger then will come.
The trigger is there. It may even be government being unable to pay the next installment of public debt payments to foreigners, and we default. In the day we default, it may be in October, it may be, I don't know, maybe in November, maybe December, I don't know. I cannot tell you when the next trigger is going to be and what it's going to be. But our trigger is on the way. It may be Mbadi, the new Minister for Treasury, republishing his finance bill as he has promised. I don't know what the next trigger is. So let them enjoy their time now in charge. But the information is very clear. This is a lull before the storm. When Kenyans are going to rise next to reject the way governance is being done in this country, even this broad-based government, which Masita Rus calls a fraud-based, she calls it fraud-based government, you will realize that they are actually made with the legs of clay.
There's been calls, and this is the thing, that when we look at, I shudder to think that some of the stories that make their way into the public eye in terms of what is missing, we keep giving the example of things that are budgeted for that are not done, whether we look at education, whether we look at health, whether we look at infrastructure, things that should be happening, which is the business of the nation. It's the business of government to have those things done. And when we see the continuous lack of those things happening, and we can point to certain reasons why. Look at quality assurance, for example, and we use the story that's in the headlines today. When we look at quality assurance that should be guaranteed by a Ministry of Education, for example, obviously there are some gaps that were not filled. Somebody somewhere didn't do what they were supposed to do, and have not been doing what they're supposed to do. So when we look forward and we say it's the lull before the storm, that people are just waiting for that thing that's going to happen, that will be the straw that breaks the camel's back, there's always the call for then who's going to take over. And that has been the center of conversation, even from the protests that we saw and the continuous protests that we see, that somebody is yearning for somebody who's going to come and fill that leadership deficit. Is there a need for such a thing at this time?
There is need for that. In the conversations that are happening in this country, I have the privilege of listening in to some of them. That question really was at the center of the collapse of the revolution in June. And I know of very organized groups coming together, political parties, civil society organizations, people's social movements across the country, using X spaces, but now starting to meet physically, because we've realized that the face of only raising these issues on social media is necessary, but is not sufficient. Is important, but is not sufficient. So people have realized that they must engage. If you can take Nairobi alone, and the number of assemblies that have been carried out over the last 1 month alone, the number of assemblies that have been conducted in estates. The last one was in Dandora. My friend Buka, I saw him at the Dandora assembly before he was arrested and denied to fly out of the country. You are seeing a critical mass of mobilization to offer leadership so that there is no gap. And the coming together of all these Kenyans who are committed to ending the corruption, the wastage, the pillaging of the economy is critical, because that's how you build confidence that there's an alternative to William Ruto and ODM and all this. I saw yesterday Kalonzo Musyoka was campaigning somewhere in Kiambu, and people said, deal with your governor in Machakos first and then come. Go deal with that issue in your party and then come and tell us that you are serious. What that tells you is that Kenyans are coming together, and the demarcation is like during the Moi days. You are either with the politicians or you are with Kenyans. That choice is now being forced, and the people are choosing. Babu Owino, who could believe that Babu would say anything that was not going to please Raila Odinga? Even the Secretary General Sifuna, I don't know whether you have had him here since they formed the broad-based government.
He was here on Friday.
I saw him. I don't know what he said about it.
Saying the same things that you're saying now.
He's everywhere, because he now does not know how to annoy his party bosses, and how does he live with the public, which loves him a lot. So Kenyans are forcing everybody to take a decision, where even the church, where are you? Are you with William Ruto and his politicians, or you are with the people of Kenya? make a choice today. During the days of Joshua, I think everybody in their families are saying, as a family, we are now taking a decision that we are not going to be with William Ruto and the politicians. We are going to stand with Kenya and the values of this country, which are in the constitution. So, yes, the critical leadership is coalescing. The outreach to the public is happening. And I think people are prepared for when that trigger happens to provide a constitutionally supported route to giving this country a transitional government first before Kenyans can be able to have a full-fledged elections to install a government that is legitimate.
Do you think corruption will be an issue in the next election?
It will be a critical, big issue in the next election. Because like ICC was the issue that time which galvanized certain ethnic communities, this election of 2022 was actually an alliance of the corrupt. Every corrupt individual joined Kenya Kwanza, and they got elected. I don't know whether they got elected, but anyway, they are in power. Corruption is going to be a decisive discussion. The other discussions that are going to be there is that public debt and the economy, employment and etc., the things that William Ruto campaigned on, taxes, the economy is going to be at the center of the next general election, just as as corruption will be a very decisive agenda in the next general election.
Always good having you here, Cyprian. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
We'll invite you again soon. Cyprian Nyamwamu is the spokesperson of the Kenya Bora Twitakaya movement. He's been our guest. We talked about corruption, the costs of unexplained corruption in Kenya, and whether we are seeing a critical mass of people who are now connecting corruption to their daily situation. Keep it here for more. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah Obaga. As families of 46 children at the ill-fated Hillside Academy and Arusha are still missing, DNA tests will be taken today to ascertain the whereabouts of their children. The family of Kelvin Kafogo Njogu, a grade 7 learner at the ill-fated Hillside Academy and Arusha, says it will accept the dreaded fate of their missing kin, even as they demand justice for all the victims of the fire tragedy. Sorrow and grief welcome you to Njogu's family at Charity Village in Kieni West, Nyeri County. Kelvin's mother is overwhelmed with the shocking reality that her son is still missing 72 hours after the fire tragedy. 37-year-old Simon Kafogo Njogu, Kelvin's father, is yet to come to terms with the unprecedented turn of events.
Hatujui kwenye hako mpaka saa hii. Watu wanitembelea kunifariji na tuko na shida sana. Kwanza mimi kupoteza mtoto wangu na ndiye first born wangu na ako na miaka 13. Tunasikia ushugu mwingi sana kama mimi mzazi kupoteza mtoto wangu, na mimi nilikuwa nimepeleka mtoto wangu shule ili akasome apate elimu na jifuga kula na kunywa ndio nipate pesa ya kumlipia school fees. DCI wanatuambia tuende kesho Madi huko na Rumoro ndio tushukuliwe shebesha za damu na hiyo sijui sample za DNA ndio tufanywe DNA. Watoto wameshomeka vinyi, hauwezi jua mtoto wako. Sasa hatujui the way forward, but tunaomba serikali tusaidie sana kama sisi wenye hatuna nguvu.
The government has bowed to mounting pressure to review the new funding model for higher education and formed 2 working committees to look into the issues raised by students, parents and other stakeholders. Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Migos says the formation of the committees, which he tasked with reviewing the implementation of the model and make recommendations. This came as the last-ditch effort to appease student leaders who had called for nationwide demonstrations against the new model that that categorizes learners in 5 bands based on their ability to pay fee, family backgrounds, cost of courses, among other factors. And Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi will today hold talks with Namibian President Netumbo Nandi in the country where he left for yesterday. Mudavadi has taken Raila Odinga's campaign for the African Union Commission chairperson seat to Namibia, a trip that will also see Nairobi seek to strengthen its ties with Windhoek. This becomes Kenya's first lobbying trip to Odinga's candidature in Southern Africa following last month's official launch of the bid in Nairobi. And finally, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has warned police officers in the country against harassing elected leaders. Speaking at St. Patrick Anglican Church in Kayole, Nairobi, Gachagua urged them to instead focus on the numerous criminal cases that are being reported in the country instead of being used to settle political scores.
Harassment of elected leaders is counterproductive. It makes them very popular. So wewe ukifikiria unawaangaisha, kuwashikashika kila Friday, kuwasukuma, kuwaangaisha, you make them very popular. Huyu Mejadok kutoa hapa Embakasi Central sinikibarua? Yes. Don't harass elected leaders. Don't be misused to engage in politics. Just do your work. We have enough problems ya crime katika jiji la Nairobi and also in the country. Deal with the criminals who have committed the crimes against the people of Kenya. Leave elected leaders alone to do their politics.
Gachagua further called on elected leaders to as well perform their duties as they'll be held accountable by Kenyans at the end of their term.
Tusikize kila mtu hata yule ako chini. Ako na kitu tu anaweza sema. Hata akiwa mnyonge. Hata akiwa hana jicho moja. Hata kama mguu yake ilivunjika. Bora tu ako na masikio mbili na ako na akili katikati ya masikio. Kuna kitu anaweza sema, umsikize. Mimi naambia viongozi, sikizeni ground. Wanasema ati mimi nawatisha. Na mimi nikuambia tu kweli kwa sababu mimi ni mzee na ni kiongozi. Nakuambia hawa, msiposikiza ground, mtakosana na wenye kuandika nyinyi kazi na watamfukuza.
That's the news wire. I'm Lea Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
It's busy in the city this morning. Quite a lot of traffic. Doesn't really matter where you're looking at it coming from this morning. Kangunda Road, there's traffic all the way from Jiru, really, through towards Outer Ring. In and outbound traffic is also people are trying to go back and trying to find their way. It's busy also through and through on Outer Ring. There's traffic also coming in from North Airport Road, and that's on the Eastern Bypass. Eastern Bypass traffic, very heavy, touching a little bit then as you're trying to get through towards North Airport Road. It's also very busy then coming off of Langata Road. Traffic then trying to make its way through to Raila Odinga Way and then out towards Aerodrome onto Uhuru Highway rather. You get to Uhuru Park at some point. SpiceFM KE on X. Let's talk and keep things moving this morning. Hashtag the Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, it is 7 minutes after 8. How are you doing? Welcome to the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Like we said, every hour we are going to be remembering that it's first of 3 days of national mourning following the tragedy at the Hillside and the Russia Academy. It's a sad one. Those many children dying and the manner in which they died. It's very, very sad. We again pass our heartfelt condolences to the family, to the school community, to everybody who's affected by that tragedy.
Indeed.
It's a bad one. It's a bad one. And on to the second hour. Our guest is in the studio. He is Jimmy Wenjege. Jimmy, what are you in Safina Party?
Well, let me say I was the Safina presidential aspirant, but I hold no position of leadership in Safina. But I am a member.
You're a member of Safina?
I'm a member of Safina.
Okay.
And I want to just emphasize just what you have talked about, the tragedy at Hillside and Darasha. These are our children, young children that tragically passed away, and we hear some are missing. There's also the young Gen Zs that also passed away. We don't know the exact number, between 61 and 300. I think we owe them a minute silence. If we can do that, please.
Indeed. Indeed. Just a moment of silence in memory of all those that have died. May their souls rest in peace. City, give us the day's proverb. So you said this week you are giving us proverbs from...
This of the final. We've been looking at countries. When we started off with island nations of Africa, then we looked at landlocked. Now we're looking at nations in Africa that border the ocean.
And you said how many are there in Africa?
There are 38.
Excluding the islands?
Just the ones that border.
Okay. The ones that are on mainland Africa bordering the ocean.
Yes. So today we're looking at the Federal Republic of Somalia. Yes. A country with a very, very rich history. You wouldn't know that until a coup was enacted and things went belly up, that country was moving ahead very swiftly and very well. To signify that, they even had a Supreme Court.
Yes, they did.
And when Said Barre was a Major General, Said Barre took over, one of the things he disbanded was Parliament, Supreme Court. Constitution.
Vunja yote.
Yes. He didn't know. It caught up with him. Not.
He did.
Yeah, he did. He didn't know. It caught up with him. And the interesting thing about Somalia is that the government of Said Barre tinkered with scientific socialism, tinkered with Marxism, tinkered with many things. But the net result of what they did was they just became more and more and more and more repressive. So at some point, the citizenry said, you know, you. And that country is only now beginning to recover after very many
What did the colonialists call it?
Well, the colonialists, before the colonialists, let's talk about before Christ. It was called Punt. Then it was British Somaliland. Then it was Italian Somaliland.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Very good. You know your history, City.
Reading is good. One does not tell a man, go away, but shows one something he must do.
One does not tell a man, go away, but shows one something he must do. What do you think the Somalis are saying, Jimmy?
That's a very good question. That's a very good proverb. You don't have to speak. You can show one your back and you're saying a lot.
Yep.
Don't have to speak.
Actually, when you put it that way, you're actually right, because you don't tell him to go away, you just tell him, don't speak.
No, at least not to me.
No, yes. I'm sure the other people you can speak about me. Yes. You've been told.
Maybe.
Now that one you've been told.
Yeah.
As you say correctly, kwenda u?
Kwenda huko.
City. It's good to be back, guys.
Good to have you back.
Yes, good to be back.
Good to have you back, and good to see that your place is still
yeah.
untraceable and unreachable.
You know, these people seem to have perfected bad manners, very bad manners. And you know, it must come to an end. You can't keep trying to do the same thing over and over again. You know, the results don't change. Yeah, leave me alone in my home. Literally, leave me alone. If you want me, come for me, ask me to show up. I'll show up. Don't try and bombard my home, where my children are, where my wife is, and cause such brutality. You are cowards. Men, you know, when they find the essence of even principles of war was that men do not fight women and children because you are inviting the same to your own homestead. Men fight out there. What is our fight with this government? It's just politics. It's just siasa. We have a difference of opinion about how this country should be run. And we have our democratic right to do it. Why should it be a war?
But why must just a difference of opinion? Why must it that when we differ, as Eric is asking, all we're saying is I think this and you're saying you think that. Why must that constitute a battle?
I fully agree with you. It means that we must be speaking the truth. It means that the people we are talking about have no solution. And they cannot take the pressure that is unto them, because it is leading to the unpopularity and their demise. And the only way you fight back is to come with some form of dominance of guns. These are people who got in with the ballot. And when you get in with the ballot, you cannot rule with the bullet. You look at our neighbors, some of them, like Uganda. He came in with a bullet. Maybe he is allowed to rule with a bullet. But in Kenya here, you're not going to rule with a bullet.
It's interesting that you say that, Jimmy, because one has to ask the question then, why you? Or are there things that you have been saying from what that has made or that has created a situation of uncomfortability that they feel that government or state actors now feel as though they must come for you? Why you? What is it that you've been saying? What are you doing, Jimmy?
I think the biggest fear is that we are changing the way politics is done in this country. What I like to call the center of gravity of our politics is fundamentally changing. And we have been speaking it for the last 2 to 3 years. And many people are not hearing. Many people are wondering what you're talking about. The people who are currently in so-called power thought they could ignore it until Gen Z came out. And Gen Z came out, and you could hear their issue. It was the economy. You could hear their issue. It was about ideological governance. And it was said over and over. And there was a sudden realization that just maybe there is another conversation where majority are. A big majority of Kenyans are there. It is not the traditional politics of my community, my sijui, my 10 friends, who are enjoying some cake, my coming to the table with the different wagogo from different regions. The politics that the Mzungu brought here long time ago, that has been perfected regime after regime, even after independence. That is going away. We have become united today on one very basic thing, the pain we each feel about the economy of this country. Each of us are wearing a shoe, we know where the toe is pinching. We know. Each and every one of us. And I'm telling you, maybe apart from Ruto's 10 friends, there's no Kenyan who is not feeling some sort of pain. That is uniting us, and we are starting to ask the hard questions.
Jimmy,
what is wrong?
It's interesting, because if you listened to what the president campaigned on and his messaging, whatever the Gen Z were saying was like a welcome extension to what he was saying, because arguably the president actually ran a campaign on issues to a large degree, signed charters, issues. You're saying this is what we want to do, this is what we ought to do. And part of the reason why he even got the support, there are many who felt it was a departure from our old politics. Now the Gen Z came and said, actually, there's this little detail, there's something called a constitution, and there's this thing that you're bringing, but for now, our point of contest is this thing, this finance bill, for now, okay, and spoke about it. As I said, if what was campaigned on was meant, then the idea of thought leadership would have been embraced and have said, okay, we have a movement before us that tells us we must change. We've gotten the warning. It is clear. This message doesn't get clearer. But the moment Raila Odinga's people joined government, we didn't just go back to factory settings. We went back to factory settings in a rush. It's like we never moved. But the thing about thought leadership, it doesn't go anywhere. Not really. The idea is a seed. It's been sown. There is nothing you're going to do about it. Ignoring it is the best you can do, but at your own peril, really, because those ideas have a tendency of growing. And especially if they represent something that the smallest denominator of a Kenyan understands and says, actually, I have a problem. It wasn't always the case. The question that I ask myself over and over and over again, Jimmy, you have spent a lot of time with the politicians. What is it that our political leadership, not politicians, political leadership, what is that they don't understand about ensuring that the economy grows and that we have a huge economy? Do they not see the benefits even to themselves of a huge economy?
CT, that's a fantastic question. And with it, because we started on this show primarily talking about civic education, I want us to go backwards. Because Ruto is just but a symptom of something that started here in 1887. When a company called Royal East Africa Company came to Kenya from India.
Royal British?
No,
not IB.
Royal East Africa Company first.
Yes.
And then in 1902 you had IB, Imperial British East
African Company. Yes.
This company came after the so-called Scramble for Africa conference in Bismarck did in what was called Prussia at the time. Now, what was its motive? It came here to extract resources, to exploit the people.
And they didn't pretend about it.
Right? And to dominate. They did not pretend. It was a private company coming here for profit. In 1902, when it changed to Imperial British East Africa,
yes,
Kenya became a protectorate. Correct?
Yes.
And as a protectorate, the British government was sort of saying, we are now coming in. That company, you talk about IBEA, now became the governance of Kenya. So this is a private company here to make profits, right? Who became the civil servants? Those people who are here to extract, exploit, and dominate. Who became the policemen to dominate? They are watchmen who are there to protect the master's property and the master's exploitation and extraction. In 1920, it was formalized in full. That has been the model of Kenya. But remember, even as they were so-called extracting and exploiting, they were always bankrupt. They kept being bailed out. Why does that sound dissimilar to what we are doing today?
And who kept bailing them out?
The British government.
Yes.
And then they tried to bring taxation. All right? And they started with the hard tax and many other taxes. And that model continued in independent Kenya, where today you get to power with your 10 friends and you decide you're going to exploit, you're going to extract, and you're going to dominate. Do when you don't listen, askari wanatumwa kwako. Those are the watchmen. They don't even appreciate that you're the one who pays their salary from your taxes. Your taxes keep getting increased and your debt burden continues. That model has never, ever changed. Never. It's now been 100 years plus since 1920.
So it's not decisive behavior, it's learned behavior.
It's
and if
learned
that's the
behavior.
case, can they, whomever they is, be blamed?
How many people want to be elected to go to government to become rich? Where is this? Who created this model? That you become an MP or a governor or a president, go and get rich. In other countries, it's unheard of. To the same colonizers, in their countries, it is unheard of. Because government is supposed to be a place of service. So where did we get this model? It's because government, when it was created, and the model that was adopted from colonialism, was a profit motive. And it always went bankrupt. And it always got bailed out. 100 years, we have now reached the end. We have reached the end, city. And that's what a lot of the political class are not understanding. This model cannot work anymore. It's a total shift now. The days when you are going to keep what you call planned poverty, where 60% are below the poverty level, and 30% are struggling to keep a job, and a few 10% or 10 friends are ruling and earning, are gone. That model is gone.
What's a sign that it's gone?
This is the sign you're now seeing. We are at a situation today where we cannot raise more taxes. I'm glad, City, you talked about reject finance bill. Yes, Gen Z rejected it, but they continued demonstrating, which means the pain was still there even after the rejection. All right? So the pain is still with us. You can't go that way anymore. You have exhausted your loan avenue. You're on your knees, begging the world to save you. Our president has literally become a slave to the conditions in this country that he helped create, and a slave to people he's begging to keep alive. He is currently in political and economic ICU as William Samoei Ruto. That is the state of our nation. We are at an end. We are not producing. And we are saying no more of this. The Adani thing is a case in point. So what happens here with exploitation, extraction, and dominance is that now when you have taken our taxes to pay debt, because you become a slave to debt, what else do you come for? You come for assets because we need to be bailed out. So a new colonization wave comes. Royal East Africa Company of 1887 is no different to what Adani is trying to do at the airport. You're now coming for our blue chip enterprises and taking them for 30 plus years and colonizing us further. The next it will be Kenya Power. The next it will be our climate. The next it will be our minerals. So we become slaves for another 100 years. That is where we are. Because we have nothing. And are we going to agree this? I say no. We cannot continue this. This is the end of it. And the political class don't get it. They don't understand that now we are very interested in civic education. We want to understand. We are now very well aware of what is going on in the world. Where we are, it is not like our forefathers who did not even know what reading a book was. We are at a very different stage in our lives. And we are not going to be colonized anymore, whether by our local colonialists, our neo-colonialists from outside. We are cutting off this chain, and they don't get it.
Do we get it, Jimmy, the way you're saying?
Yes. Oh, yes. Look at the amount of civic education now.
Because, yes,
on.
there's civic education, there's awareness, there's a clamor for change. But do we have a clear definition of what that change is? There are clamors for change even throughout that 100 years. Even throughout the clamor for independence was a clamor for change. What was that? What is it that they were looking for? They were looking for self-governance. Also, they believed that having somebody who looks like you, who speaks your language, being your president or your leader, that is self-governance. Was it? Did it liberate people? We talked about the second liberation of the country. It's about our system, our political party, allowing multi-party elections and plurality in conversations. Did it change?
No.
Were we aware what we exactly were looking for and what was... Because now you say now we have gotten to another point where we want change. Do we know what change we want?
Yes. At each stage, we are cutting off what we believed was our chain. So when we had the clamor for democracy, for self-rule, independence, what was our chain? Colonialism. The white man ruling Kenya. Right? So we cut off that chain.
That's what we saw as a chain.
We saw as a chain. Right? The next part we said, you mean we removed the chain of the Mzungu to put our own dictator? Right?
Yeah.
We are not going to be a chain to a dictator who tells us how to breathe, how to walk, right? When we can even go to the toilet. No, we are cutting off that chain, and we cut it. Then we thought along the way, hey, maybe this constitution that came in 1961, when people were still thinking about how to enslave us, is the problem. So we went and we cut that chain. Okay? 2010. And we actually produced a very good document. Really.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to even be altered even with one comma as far as I'm concerned. Now, so we can speak. We have political rights. We can go to the ballot. But our problem is still persisting. Our economic problem is still persisting. So what is our current chain? And that's what we've been discussing on this show.
Jimmy, what we see as a chain, what they saw as a chain in the 60s, in the 50s into 60s, what we saw as a chain in the 80s into 90s, what we saw as a chain in the 2000s. Like you just told us, that was actually not the chain.
No, it was part of the chain, but not the entire chain.
So now that we are saying that we are looking at this new chain, is this a big chain?
It's not a new chain. It is now the final chain.
How do we know this
is the economic chain? And the economic chain comes with system. I told you about the system of a company that came here that became a government. That's a political system and an economic system that was embedded for three things: exploitation, extraction, and dominance. And that's what we're going to change. And two, what is our chain today? I've been on this show for the last 2 years talking about a chain of debt, which is extraction, the biggest extraction to our life. The biggest. Once we cut off that chain, I can assure you, and create a different political order that is not about a government that is extracting, exploiting, and dominating. I can assure you, you have freed the Kenyan to go and prosper. And this is where now ideological politics comes in. New plans come in. What is one group and what is another group? All right? What is Jimmy's ideology about a future? Am I a capitalist? Am I a socialist? Am I this? This is now where you start getting debate about ideology. All right? Political systems and economic systems. And this is where we are headed. This is the turning point. This is the turning point that defined all the great nations of the world, even America. The first debate about what you called two thoughts was about those who are anti-federalism and those who are federalists. You had those who were thereafter for slaves and against slaves. All right? And that was the foundation of what you found as the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. You can take that history and carve it anywhere in the world, what is left and right. This is where we are. And the politicians don't understand this, because the model they have used is the same one that was embedded by the Mzungu. The same one that said, okay, you are the Wagogo of the Wajaluo. You are the Wagogo of the Mijikenda. Come to the table. When you come to the table, everyone in your community is supposed to feel they are represented. You can eat. Because you're eating, everybody else must be full. Right? But it's a club. What is this broad-based government that Citi is talking about? Ruto is using the same old 20th century tactics in the 21st century. Right? You're bringing people to the table thinking you're solving the problem. You're not. You're not. The problem is still persisting. Pain has not gone away. Right? In fact, I pity him if he imagines so. It was on this show, and I said it publicly, and I said it in public fora, that there is a revolution coming. People thought I'm talking, which Kenyans are going to revolt? What are you talking about? I repeat on this show, who told you the revolution is over? The pain is still persisting. The problem is still there. Who told you it is over? Of course not.
You know, Jimmy, let's take a break, Citi. Yes. Sorry. It's 27 minutes to 9. Our guest this morning is Jimmy Wanjege. He is a member of the Safina Party. He was a presidential aspirant then. Maybe you want to be a presidential candidate with the same party next time, in the next election.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, let me put it this way. Party is something that now has to be developed on ideology and feelings. And Kenyans many times define the party of the moment. So who knows? Who knows?
The party of the moment.
Yes.
We'll be back shortly after this break. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Kenyans abroad, sending money home should be simple and stress-free. Stay connected back home. Open your Credit Bank Nyumbani Diaspora account today by visiting www.creditbank.co.ke. Just a few clicks and you're all set to send love and support back to your loved ones. And that's not all. Explore a world of possibilities, including investment opportunities. It's fast, easy, and secure, bringing you closer to the moments that matter most. Visit creditbank.co.ke or call +254 70 907 2000 to learn more. Credit Bank is regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya.
SpiceFM, Malindi. The weather with
The sun is
Spice.
up in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 27 and lows of 13 and lows of 13 and highs of 27 as well. In Nakuru, where it's sunny at 15, 13 and sunny conditions in Nyeri with highs of 25 and going to highs of 24. It's sunny in Eldoret at 12. Mombasa is sunny at 23 with highs of 29 and we'll see highs of 29 as well. In a mostly sunny Malindi at 24, 21 and sunny in Kisumu with highs of 31 and into a sunny Kakamega at 17. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 16. It's a sunny morning in Kampala with highs of 20 and lows of 18, while Dar es Salaam at 24 will be sunny through Monday with highs of 29 and lows of 22. It's partly sunny at 16 in Johannesburg with highs of 26 and lows of 8, while Mogadishu is sunny through the day, currently at 26, going to highs of 31. It's a cloudy morning at 13 in Addis Ababa. We'll see highs of 21, and we're looking into a clear skied Lagos at 25 with highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 32 in a mostly cloudy Kinshasa at 22.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
A very busy morning in Nairobi today, looking into the capital, and quite a lot of traffic coming in from the Thika Superhighway. Traffic is especially heavy this morning, and we're looking at it well past that Allsops stage junction. It's coming in heavy from Kasarani out towards the city. We're also seeing heavy traffic on Kiambu Road. All of this coming from the Northern Bypass, where we saw early traffic. And if you look beyond that, we're looking at well past Kiambu Road, out there coming in heavy, all the way from actually Kiambu itself. Very, very heavy traffic this morning. Not quite sure what's causing that. So if there's something that you need to let us know about, let us know and we'll spread the word. It's also heavy coming in from Gesha Road, Lower Kabete, out towards Spring Valley, and the traffic on the Red Hill Link Road, which you should be avoiding traffic with, is not funny at all. It's in and outbound. Coming all the way from Lavington, Mzima Springs, out towards Waiakiwe, very heavy traffic. Avoid it if you can. And we're also looking at it heavy coming off of Landys Road this morning. In and outbound traffic is doing the thing. We get towards the Globe Cinema roundabout coming off Moranga Road. We're in traffic hour proper. Let's keep an eye on things and see how it develops. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Our conversation continues with Jimmy Wenjege. City, you had a question before you took a break.
I did have a question. In fact, I had two questions. Anytime, if you see, I'm taking a leaf from Jimmy's book. We're going historical here. The history that we've had in this country is that every time political leadership is faced with truths they do not particularly want to face, they become violent or they become oppressive. And then they do something else that, Eric, you introduce the show kicking the can down the road, meaning finding someone to blame. Jimmy, when we had the protests, there are those who said it is you, among others, who are behind those protests. Some were even bold in saying that you funded the protests. In fact, I wanted to say, I know Jimmy, so maybe if he's funding the protest, I can also go to him and tell him, Jimmy, I also want to protest.
So fund me. This one equals.
Good one.
Now, in the time you have been in the company and you have done business with politicians and political entities, what has been your take when something that could have been discussed suddenly becomes violent?
A spotlight has been shown. Anytime a spotlight is shone on the truth of what is really happening, it is akin to what the Mzungu used to do. When we clamored for self-rule, what happened? People died. We don't even know the exact numbers.
No.
Entire communities were detained, taken off their land and detained. Why is it any difference? It is no different.
Actually, taking off their land is putting it mildly. Their entire social structure and fabric was completely bastardized.
Yes.
Completely.
Yes.
The Swinnerton plan guaranteed that.
Correct.
Yes.
So how is it different? Our foundation was wrong in most things. We can say we can take home one or two good things about the colonial era, such as the education system and institutions of governance that we didn't have. Even saying that they drew the map called Kenya. And we are happy to be together with our diversity and our strength and our numbers. But in reality, we inherited a rotten system. It was never about pulling everybody together.
And it was so by design.
It was so by design.
Yes. So the system then, those that were in power then, they could see the winds of change coming.
Yes.
And they could see with this clamor for independence, there's something that these people want.
Yes.
And the net effect of it is overthrowing this system that we have.
Yes.
So let's run ahead of it.
Yes.
And find a way of managing it so that we protect ourselves and our status quo in another way.
Yes.
And they successfully did it.
Yes. I want to add something to that, Eric. Is that it's significant that you note that as they were so-called allowing us to have our independence, catalyzed by some of the things that were happening here, like the war in the forest, Mau Mau, what was happening on the world stage? We had gone from World War I, II, to now a new battle for them out there. Remember the scramble of Africa?
Yep.
Was because of the European battle amongst themselves. Right? Now, what was the new battle? There was a new battle with the sudden rise of Russia, China, and communism. And two ideologies were coming into play, capitalism and communism.
Mm-hmm.
And the view I can tell you to our great so-called Europeans was that if they do not let go of our great continent, we are going to be liberalized. Our freedom will come from the communist part of the world.
Yep.
They will arm us. They will make sure that we get our independence through them and adopt communism.
And so
they were getting ahead of even communism's growth. It had nothing to do with feeling that we are okay. And if you note on the continent, a lot of the countries that sort of started leaning towards them, that was the advent of major assassinations of presidents. City.
Or political leadership that had stood out.
Leadership that stood out. It was not about Pan-Africanism.
No.
I think that was only in part. The main thing was that they had
the
communist East leaning. And there are very many documented historical books that talk about the CIA specifically hitting leaders.
Okay.
If you look at now multipartyism, and I want you to just note the dates, the clamor for sub-Saharan Africa specifically to get into multipartyism, in as much as we clamored for it here, it coincided with a very interesting historical point in the history of Western Europe and Eastern Europe. It was the end of communism. So when the Berlin Wall was coming down, right? Russia was changing, right?
Yep.
So-called one superpower was emerging.
Yeah.
And the greatest thing with that is that you say, okay, now that threat has gone. We now need time to rebuild our economy, right? And the problem is that we now have a lot of enlightened leadership in Africa who've understood us, who know us, who know where we are going, right? Now we need to send them into a different arena, which is...
Let them fight among themselves.
Yes! Divide and rule. Okay? So they don't focus on what we're doing. All right?
Yep.
As we don't focus on what we're doing, we grow. Right? So they grow exponentially. Right? What comes the next phase? Where are we now?
But Jimmy, there's a
What's happening now? No, let him tell us. So where are we now globally?
What's happening now?
What's happening now globally?
So as they grew, what did they send as their chain to us?
Debt.
Right. They grew financially. This is where World Bank, IMF, the printing of the dollar grew. The Western world, right? At our expense, at our exploitation, grew exponentially, especially in the finance world. And then they come back and they start talking about one reform after another, right? Creating situations where we cannot compete. Structural adjustment they started with, then globalization, then sijui nini, right? And as we are on our knees limping, right? Limping, they come and you offer you bailouts. Bailouts.
And aid.
Bailouts and aid.
And cloud
and
mines.
yes. No, now that comes now is the new colonization. Now we want to change our energy source. These people have got about 40% of that potential. New colonization. Because it's not only climate, it is also minerals. Because you need battery life.
Yep.
It's minerals. New wave. The other thing we have, exploitation, is people. We have a young generation. Up until the year and the next 100 years, the young population is where? With us.
Yep.
You need them as workers.
The youngest continent on the planet.
Yes. It's a new wave. And unfortunately, just like those periods, we had our slave traders.
The Lokonya
We had our home guards.
Yeah, it was not possible to have it without local
You have come to my point, Jimmy, that throughout there's the overall owner of the system who can see the change,
yes,
and they appreciate the change,
yes,
and they run ahead of the change,
yes.
And then there's a local player who is also in a way seeing the change and taking advantage of seeing where to position themselves.
Correct.
Now, the current leaders are your friends, all of them. Ruto, Uhuru, Raila, Kalonzo, they're all your friends. You have sat, you have had conversations, you have dealt together. Many. If you're seeing it, I put it to you, they have also seen it.
I don't think so.
I put it to you that they have also seen it.
I don't think so. I believe...
And not just them, but the system is preparing itself for the next. Which is why I come back to that question I asked you, are we sure of the clamor of the chain that we are going after, whether it's actually the chain that's going to give us the freedom, or are we going to be managed again into our so-called freedom?
Do you know, there are many people, even as the clamor for our independence came up, they'll tell you there were a lot of people who used to argue that the African is not ready to rule himself.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Mm. And I want to tell you, even today, those friends you're talking about, they do not see it as clearly as we're discussing here. They have been inculcated in a very different system.
What do they see?
What do they see?
Yes.
The politics of the 20th century.
But are we not looking at...
I'm a Mugogo, okay, right, with my flock that is sitting at the table. Are you not seeing it?
But don't you...
We even have leaders who are going around the country talking about their own communities.
Jimmy, is it not the same situation?
And saying, what has changed?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
there really is no change.
Yes, they don't see it.
If we look at what happened many years ago, when we talk about the exploitation and the extraction, there was not just extraction of resources, there was extraction of people.
Exploitation of people, yes.
This did not happen without the local people making it possible. There were local individuals who made sure or made it possible for this extraction to happen. You don't just come in and take over like that. There's somebody who gives you, somebody who makes a way for you on the local side. So if we're saying that the same thing is replicating itself in 2024, where there are nations around the world for who this extraction continues, today in the name of debt, today in the name of, aid, and the neo-colonialization that we're talking about, then I put it to you that there are still local people who are allowing that to happen. They can see exactly what is going on. They know what is happening. But the personal benefit that was there 60 years ago still remains a source of motivation today. So in as much as they know what is going on, the personal benefits that they get far outweighs any other kind of attention that they're going to pay to millions of people in a population. That the millions of people whose families went and became slaves across the pond, today it's a different kind of slavery. But it still is that there are local individuals who are making it possible. They are in the minority, but they have the power, and so they continue to do it.
I agree. That's why I'm agreeing with you and I disagree with Eric. You see, they do not see it. And if they do, and I don't think they do, they are very happy with the status quo.
But that's what makes it worse for me.
They are not change agents.
That's what makes it worse for me.
That's why I'm saying that the center of gravity of our politics has changed.
But that's what
and if you want to understand it, Gen Z.
I get it, but this is why I'm saying that it makes it worse, Jimmy, is because, and I keep saying that, you know something, you are aware of it, that's bad enough. But being aware of it and still continuing to do it, for me, makes it worse. That you are very aware of the detriment. You think the people who were passing off families of people in the slave trade in the 1800s, 1900s, you think they didn't know how bad it was?
They knew.
Did. But the personal gain far outweighed any other kind of, shame that they would have felt.
Always.
It's the same thing today. That there are people who know that Kenya continues to be in the shackles of debt. They know that the corruption is bad, but they also know that they will not get caught because nobody's going to put them to task. For me, that makes it worse. That you are very aware how detrimental this is to the people of Kenya. You are aware, but you still continue to do it because the personal gain far outweighs any kind of shame that you will feel.
Correct.
And you've been allowed to get away with it. So they are aware. It's so much more worse.
So you're in agreement with me?
I agree that they know what's happening. They know how bad it is.
Yes.
But they still continue to do it. For me, that's why you should go to the gallows. You know. And you still continue to do it.
Now you brought in a new thing, which is they should not get away with it.
No.
Right. So, again, fundamentally, there's history to that. We allowed the colonialists to get away with it. When we got independence, we allowed the home guards, who you're talking about, because those are similar to the home guards, to get away with it. In fact, they became administrators.
You put them in government.
We put them in government.
Yes.
Right? Every single turn. Today, you have impunity in our faces. You have an IG and a police force that has decided the law and courts are irrelevant. They are perpetuating anarchy as though they have a monopoly of it. All right? They are told to appear in court. They don't appear. They are told to produce people. They don't produce them. And they get away with it. And tomorrow's a new day. So listen, it is something in us. And when you start saying you want people to be held for account, you're told, when Mutu revenge, the country is more important to go forward than backwards. You're given all sorts of reasons as to why. So we are our own worst enemy. We have allowed it. Right? And I think in principle, when Jomo Kenyatta took power, he said we forgive, but we should not forget what has happened to us. Somewhere, that sentence has been abused since for the last 60 years. It has been abused. We forgive, but we do not forget. We not only have forgotten, we have forgiven, and we have just moved on.
Have we?
We have tried to move on, and it is now eating us.
Again, have we even tried to move on? You see, we talk of imperialism because that's what it was. European, not British, European. And if you look at the companies that came here, part of the reason why, whether they went to India here, they had access to a lot of power. Their governments supported them. Now, individuals may have grown rich, but so did the country.
Yes.
Fundamental difference. The leadership that we have gets richer, the country gets poorer.
You see, we adopted, that's why I go historically, the Mzungu method here, the colonizer's method. He came here to extract, exploit, and dominate. He didn't come here to make the African rich.
No.
No.
They still don't.
It was so that they become rich. And they meaning all of them, not just the leadership. That is still there today. Yes. There is a fundamental belief. And, I hope I am challenged that the so-called previous colonizers believe that they maintain their high standard of living at our expense. Our expense.
Yes.
So the colonizer never left.
Never left. He's still here. And we still have the chain. And he still has the traders, the home guards.
Yeah, the facilitators.
The vanguards. So we're in agreement, Jimmy. That what? I'm saying is half these people, just like the ones who were saying that Kenya is not ready for there's no African that can rule. You know, some of those people who are saying that literally believed it. All right? Today, genuinely believed it. Today, we have people that you're talking about are my friends, right? Who this conversation to them, it's like, what are they talking about? What are they talking about?
They're in
See,
denial.
This is the way.
Jimmy,
they're in denial. They'll even tell you, Kenya's too small. Kenyans are this. Kenya's a poor country. What do we do? We just have to be on our knees. No, I'm telling you.
My point, Jimmy.
You'll be very.
They are aware. They are in denial.
Are they?
Yes. They are aware
that times have changed.
Clinically so.
They are in denial. And they are in denial purposely because they know that accepting means that they disrupt
lose.
themselves and they lose.
Absolutely. But what did we
And
see?
that's why we saw the fraud-based, broad-based, whatever coalition coming together.
That one, I would argue with you, Eric. Yes.
But what did we see? I mean, look at situations whereby the status quo was going to be disrupted. And you can call me controversial or say whatever you want to say.
Yes.
But when the status quo was disrupted,
Yes.
where they would call particular leaders on the African continent strong men,
Yes.
they would get rid of them, Gaddafi being one of them.
Yes.
That they said, you can actually promote, you can actually create, you can actually develop your own wealth. And it was anathema to the people who said, no, we can't have this kind of thinking on the African continent.
Yes.
So we get rid of you.
Yes.
Today we see the same thing still being propagated.
Yes.
That when somebody will stand up and say, no, we cannot have corruption. We cannot have people disappeared. We cannot have children not go to school. We cannot have a health system which does not work. What do? We abduct you.
Yes.
And we try to keep you silent. It is the same manner of thinking. We disappear you.
But
we try to keep you quiet because you cannot be allowed to disrupt the status quo, which allows us to continue to extract.
Yes.
The term disappearing and to disappear people began in Argentina. Now, there's always the thought that this is what happens when something happens over a long period of time. You actually get to believe that it can't change. Actually, it can change. Because the people who preceded us in this, there's a level of brutality and inhumane treatment of citizens that the Argentinians had that we haven't gotten there. We shouldn't get there. But when you see what we've seen in the not too distant past, it's not that dissimilar.
It's not far away either.
No, it's not far away. Many of them believed this. Some died. They thought they had gotten away. People who are young then, you suddenly find it's come to your doorstep. You're now a grandfather. You were here on this date, this is what you did, and this family has been looking for their loved ones and they've never found them. Please come and explain to us. At the most inconvenient time in their lives, this not has happened, is continuing to happen. I think we've reached the hour.
Yeah, let's go to the news.
This is
Jimmy,
a
stay on for
fantastic
the next
conversation.
one. Okay? Stay on for the next one because we're saying this is civil education, civic awareness, and so we can see if we are ready for the next phase and to finally liberate our country.
Yes.
Okay? And then you'll tell us how your thinking is different from your friends' thinking. Yours.
Gladly.
Okay.
This insistence on friends.
Gladly. Buddies, man. All of them. Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it here for more 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The Directorate of Criminal Investigations will today begin the process of identification of the bodies of the victims of fire at Hillside and the Russia Academy in Nyeri that claimed the lives of 21 pupils. Nyeri County Commissioner Pius Murugu says the bodies have been preserved in the Narumoro Level 5 hospital awaiting DNA testing and post-mortem. Police in Igembe, Meru County are investigating a fire incident at Njia Boys High School that destroyed properties of unknown value. The fire broke out last evening as the students were taking their supper, affecting the Jamhuri dormitory, which houses 150 students. Police said no injuries were reported in the incident. This comes after a series of other fire incidents affecting separate schools in the country. Machakos Governor Wavinya Ndeti has dismissed claims of being detained in the United Kingdom over claims of attempting to smuggle millions of shillings into the European nation from Kenya. Wavinya noted that the claims are doctored to taint her image and are sponsored by her political nemesis. The governor further asserted that she'll be taking legal action against those spreading the claims, warning that anything that befalls members of her family shall be blamed on the suspects. She maintained that the attacks on her family shall not cripple her efforts to transform Machakos County and improve the livelihoods of county residents. Acting Inspector General of Police Gilbert Masengeli is expected in court this morning to explain why he should not be punished for disobeying court orders. The judge last week pushed the matter to today after court proceedings were hijacked by activists. If Masengeli fails to turn up, this will be the fourth time he'll have snubbed court summons. Mugambi had on August 28th directed the Inspector General of Police, DPP, AG, DCI and National Intelligence Service to immediately disclose the whereabouts of Bob Micheni, Jamil Longton and Aslam Longton to the Law Society of Kenya, which has filed the case in court. The government has bowed to mounting pressure to review the new funding model for higher education and formed 2 working committees to look into the issues raised by students, parents and other stakeholders. Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Migo says the formation of the committees, which he tasked with reviewing the implementation of the model and make recommendation. This came as a last-ditch effort to appease student leaders who had called for nationwide demonstrations against the new model that categorizes learners in 5 bands based on their ability to pay, family backgrounds, cost of courses, among other factors. Meanwhile, education stakeholders want the government through the Ministry of Education to organize sensitization meetings with students in the university so that they can take the learners through the new funding model. The call comes at the backdrop of challenges facing the new funding model and the complaints from the students. This comes at a time that a number of learners joining institutions like Rongo University are still having a problem in understanding how the new funding model works and how to access the funding too. Rongo University Vice Chancellor Professor Samuel Gudu stated that a number of learners joining the university are still having a problem in accessing the funds and also understanding the whole funding model. Gudu said the university has established a desk to help the learners with problems related to the new university funding model. And finally, in the international scene, at least 48 people have been killed in the central Nigerian state of Niger after a fuel tanker collided with a lorry carrying passengers and cattle, according to the country's disaster agency. The Niger State Emergency Management Agency said the collision happened at about 12:30 local time on Sunday and caused an explosion which engulfed both vehicles. Director General of the agency Abdullahi Baba said response teams were dispatched to the scene to manage the situation. A number of other vehicles were also caught up in the explosion. That's the news wire. I'm Leah Ubag.
.4 Spice FM.
All right, what are we looking at? At a few minutes after 9 o'clock, traffic still continues in the city this morning. Very, very heavy. Coming off Landis Road, it's quite a thing, and we're looking at traffic then spilling over from Juja Road, getting into the city via Ring Road, Ngara. Coming off a thicker superhighway, still uncharacteristically busy for a Monday morning, but okay, we'll see. Coming in from Survey, where your service lanes come to an end, it's going to go all the way through towards Pangani. Some of that goes towards Wangari Maathai Way, and then the rest of it through Moranga Road. It's still very heavy on Kiambu Road this morning. Coming in from Ridgeways and the Northern Bypass, that has been crazy. And also traffic then coming in from James Gishoro out towards the Red Hill Link Road, Kuna Road, Lower Kabete, Spring Valley, all of this doing the dance with traffic this morning. It looks like we're going to get a late exit out of traffic hour, but we're going to keep an eye on things. Also, we're looking at heavy traffic on the Uhuru Highway this morning as you get into the CBD. Let's talk, guys. Tell us where you might be stuck, or if you find a much needed good route this morning. SpiceFM, KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, so welcome to the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, 7 minutes after 9. The conversation continues with Jimmy Wanjege, and also we are now joined by Ken Mijungu from KTN. Ken, mambo vipi?
Fiti.
Very good.
Away for 2 weeks, you displaced me.
Yeah.
I was almost sitting comfortable. Then you just showed the
Eric,
your lips should have been longer.
Don't let this man con you. He was sitting in a corner somewhere. He wasn't sitting where you're sitting.
And then he took off anyway.
Yes,
Hey,
he took
right.
off.
Like, he only
On the
did
day we
not-
were ready to buy
like
him,
4
what do you
days.
call it? GK, GOK, 75,000. Happy
Yes.
birthday, belated, by the way.
G700. You would know about it.
G700.
705,000.
Oh, so now we understand. When your birthday came, you ran away.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too this morning.
Karibu. City.
Yeah.
Welcome, Ken, with the day's proverb.
Yes, Ken, our proverbs for this week comes from a country you know well, and from people many of whom are your friends.
Okay.
Wow.
It's from the Federal Republic of Somalia.
Okay.
One does not tell a man, go away, but shows one something he should do.
Okay.
You're supposed
Your
to tell me what you
interpretation.
think of the proverb, bro.
I know what I'm supposed to say,
Yeah.
but I'm still digesting it. So one does not tell a man, go away.
No, he doesn't. But
doesn't,
But
okay.
he shows them something he should do.
Okay. I think you need to know when to stop as a man, but you still need direction from some other people, especially on things that you don't know you should be doing, but someone can tell you what to do. That's my interpretation. There are things that automatically it's time to stop.
Does anybody understand what Ken has just said? Okay, what has he said?
That's how Gujarati.
So sometimes you have to know when to stop.
And when you're a man, especially, you
And
must know
especially
when to
a
stop.
man when you stop.
Do you understand that manly explanation?
Sure.
What does Ken say?
It's always time to stop.
Useless people.
You didn't hear that?
But Ken, you've explained it well.
I tried.
This is the sort of fellow who, when he was a student, he was asked, can you please tell us what a conductor is and describe it? He says, yes, teacher, I can tell you. A conductor is something which conducts something else.
Not even funny. It's not even funny.
But is it not true?
It's true, isn't it?
It's not even funny.
That is a good one.
Using the same thing to explain the
That's true, man.
Ken Karibu.
Asante.
So, Jimmy, as we were going to the top of the hour, we were talking about then what is it? You said we are at that moment where, as a country, we and the Gen Zs have shown us that it's doable. And they have actually shown that they are understanding that there's pain. And they're deciding to take action on the pain. And the action to be taken is basically to liberate the people, so to speak.
Absolutely. You see, Eric, as I said earlier, when we were talking about revolution before Gen Z, people thought we were talking in the air. Kenyans, no. Kenyans will never come out. Kenyans will never do this. They were underestimating the pain. I want to tell you, this pain is just going to increase. It is not going to stop. They cannot stop it. This regime, which in our circles we call a fraud-based government, cannot stop what is coming. And when I say fraud-based, it has generally been a fraud-based government since the colonial era. Now, there's something that I believe Kenyans should be monitoring. When we came here, we used to talk about the Constitution. And Chapter 12 of the Constitution is on public finance management. Very critical. That good book of ours. And there was a challenge that was done by Okoh Mtata last year on the Finance Bill 2023. I can say here I helped in that exercise. You saw the Court of Appeal recently stated that the Finance Act of 2023 is null and void because it is unconstitutional. Because of one chapter in one article in chapter 12. That article is 220, which defines what the budget is. The budget is two things: revenue estimates and expenditure estimates. And it said the last budget did not have, and the last budget appropriation bill did not have revenue estimates. It was a long journey, up and down, but the Court of Appeal was very clear. The Supreme Court had put a stay on that decision, and tomorrow they are adjudicating that issue for the next 2 days. I want to say categorically here, Eric, they cannot rule against the Constitution of Kenya. So it is a foregone conclusion what they are going to rule. Because the revenue estimates were not in the budget, so you cannot anchor a finance bill on revenue raising measures. You did not say what your revenue estimates were, right? As per the Constitution. But it also means something else. It means without it, you do not have a budget. It's important to understand. 220 defines a budget. Without it, you do not have a budget. Without a budget, you also cannot raise tax. What they did in 2023, they've done in 2024. And where they may have anticipated that by the time there's a ruling on the 2023 finance bill, 2024 would have gone, Gen Z kicked out the 2024 finance bill. So we are back to 2023. And that is going to be kicked out. The Supreme Court has no choice. If you read Article 2 of the same Constitution, subsection 4, it literally says this: any act, any law, any activity that is contrary to this Constitution is null and void.
It doesn't stop other things that have been happening in the past, Jimmy. And if we're just looking at...
they can't stop it.
Well, I think...
How does the Supreme Court...
been able to get by with ignoring fundamental parts of the Constitution.
Like what?
Well, absolutely.
Like what?
Well, if you want to look at, for example, safeguarding livelihoods for Kenyans, maybe you would say that it is not... it is vague or
that is vague and ambiguous.
All right.
This one is black and white.
Okay, well, let's look at things like, for example, where Parliament ought to do certain things.
No, it's black and white. No, give me a black and white example.
Parliament ought to do certain things. For example, maintain the 2/3 gender principle.
That there's a decision on.
Is there?
Yes, an opinion was done.
Okay,
yes.
So when...
but the decision, opinion was done in the previous Parliament.
In the previous Parliament.
They need to activate...
There's schedules. There's schedules which have not been enacted.
They need to activate an opinion on this.
There are schedules that have not been activated.
Those are schedules.
This current Constitution,
those are schedules.
Which have to be implemented, which have not been implemented.
Those are schedules.
Where I'm going with this is, how will you guarantee that a constitution actually will be followed, where things like by the same courts that you speak of, which is one thing that you've complained about in the past, where court orders are blatantly ignored, where, and that's another thing that's vested in the Constitution, that the courts, the Supreme Court, for example, is one that ought to be obeyed and adhered to.
Okay.
How do you say that you will be able to go into a government where things like that are blatantly ignored, where you do not have the right, again, we go back to disappearance, which you've been clamoring for in the last few days, whereby people have the right to not be disappeared so blatantly, or in the full glare of the public, right? And so here we are saying that there is a need for a different kind of governance to overtake in Kenya.
So I want to give you the input.
How? And
I'll
think
give you the input
the
of
how.
this. Yes, the how is this. That this provision that has been broken in the Constitution means they cannot collect taxation. It means they cannot take debt. Those are instruments not in their control, in ours. Because if the law says they have not followed the law, how does KRA come and collect tax from me? I'll refuse. I'll tell them to get out of my premises. If you see CBK pretending that they can issue a bond requisition or a bill requisition to borrow, they are breaking the same law, and we can sue CBK directly, and they will have problems, and they will not be able to do it. But even aside from that, banks, people are the ones to do it. You're telling them you're putting money into an illegality pronounced in courts. They will not do it because they are risking their own money. How does a government function?
Jimmy.
This is something in our hands. It is not in their hands. Those things you're talking about are in that fraud-based government's hands.
It's the realization that it's actually...
So hold on. People. So if it tells you, for example, today, right? When that ruling comes out for sure, it is going to say, for example, that we go to the revenue-raising measures of 2022. Just to give you a simple example. One of those is VAT on petroleum products.
8%.
So we go from 16 to 8%. Why would you pay 16? Who's going to keep 16? How long will you keep it?
Well,
you will not pay.
So here's the reality.
So what you're going to get...
People paid.
No, just hold on.
Until the Supreme Court
Once there is a ruling, no, they can say it was still...
Until the Supreme Court stayed that decision of the Court of Appeal, people paid 16%.
Are you trying to... They can say they were still in court, and they had tried to apply for the stay. So until then, they were not going to change their direction. Even now, many of us questioned how the Supreme Court has capacity to stay the Constitution. But we say, fine, let them say the Court of Appeal, because they have no capacity to stay the Constitution of Kenya. But maybe they are staying a ruling of the Court of Appeal. But the eventuality is that you must obey the Constitution. Now, if the government keeps 16%, you are calling for civil disobedience. I will not pay at the pump. Many people will not pay at the pump. They will say, on what basis is it collecting? You are talking about upheavals here you cannot control. They are not the monopoly of anarchy. They cannot shove that in our faces. So please, Eric, do not underestimate the capacity of an enlightened public. And we are enlightened. Kenyans are very enlightened. And you're going to see this government come to a screeching halt because they did not obey the constitution of this country. All right? They are already, as we are talking today, even without all that, CT, before you go on, even without all that, let me tell you, there are some facts here you cannot ignore. We are currently in a structural adjustment program brought by the IMF that does only one thing, cause us severe pain. It is taxation, it is austerity, it is no growth, no subsidy, no support systems. 2, we're in a situation of debt distress. 72% of everything we produce in this country is going to debt. Almost now, I believe 80% of our taxation is going to that one item called debt. You cannot provide the most simple of services to Mwananchi, and it's causing mayhem. Salaries to healthcare, to education are collapsing. And 3, you have a government that is in political and economic ICU.
Do you think
it is so easy to pull the rug under their feet?
Of course, but then why don't we see that happening? To me, I can understand, and even as you paint the picture, and we talk about.
What do you mean? Why don't you see it happening?
On. And what we see happening, if we talk about the protests that happened come June 25th.
Have you ever seen anything like that in this country?
Of course, there hasn't.
Hold on, Jimmy. Hold on.
But even as we see that happening, right? In order for us to understand that there is a full-on fatigue, that there's a full-on complete dissatisfaction with what is happening, we probably would not have seen a lull or a a break in transmission as concerns the protests?
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is the question, that are people, number one, fully abreast of the situation when we talk about how bad it is?
I don't think you understood what happened. I have been active in terms of awareness of our politics since multipartyism.
We speak about the protests as if there's something in history.
No, hold on.
Speak about it as
I
though
have never
June
seen,
25th came and went.
I have never seen Kenyans running for bullets. I've never seen. They run away from them. This time I saw them running for bullets. And you say Kenyans are not committed. They ran towards the bullets. I've never seen this ever here in this republic. And I don't think anybody ever has. And you think it's over. What are you talking about?
There's a question
the 25th of June.
I want to...
just hold on. The 25th of June. I want you to record it here. Was the end of this regime. And you are going to see a systematic failure that is not only going to lead to Gen Z, even you'll be out on the streets,
Jimmy,
if that's what it's going to take.
Please hear my question so that perhaps you can...
It is not over.
Hear my question. You talked about the fact that there needs to be an understanding that, number one, the Constitution has been abrogated. Number two, is there a realization that you've basically mortgaged the country to the point whereby everything you get, to the tune of 72%, is going to pay debt for which Kenyans don't even know what it was for.
Correct.
Right? Have we seen that people are so frustrated to the point whereby there will be no letting go of this thing?
What happened?
Because it's like a baby. It doesn't matter what you do. Or when it's pregnant, when that baby is coming, it's coming. There is nothing you will do to stop it.
And that is where
because
we are.
Because it has come to the place whereby we are here. You can talk, the doctor can say, wait, I'm not ready. The woman herself can say, wait, I'm not ready. It's coming. It's Kenya at that point whereby you say people are so frustrated with the system. People understand that their livelihoods are being stolen. Taking the food they're chewing is being removed from their throats, basically. Have people gotten to that point where they say, you know what? It doesn't matter what we're going to have to do. We're getting the country back. That's my question.
People gave up their lives. But I want to maybe give you a perspective in terms of other revolutions. We have had what I call the first phase of revolution. And you saw things we have never seen in this country. And normally, if you look at regimes that face this sort of revolution, when things reach a stage of a lull, the first thing they do, and they're advised even by their benefactors, because I'm sure the Americans were very quick to advise William Ruto, create a broad-based government. Bring unity to the country. Bring all the players into the same ship, right? And appease the masses. This is an approach used everywhere. But it doesn't solve the problem. And because it doesn't solve the problem becomes compounded, increases, and the next wave is unstoppable. I am saying that the economic problem, and especially exacerbated by debt, which is fake debt bonoko, all right, is going to chew up these people. They can't even be saved. There's no amount of money that can save these people from their so-called Western partners. This thing is going to eat you and me and everybody to the extent that we will not wait those 3 years you're imagining to an election.
Okay.
This is what is going to happen here. Itakula sisi, sawa sawa. Even Ken with his nice suit here, utaona and you're leading to go for those bullets.
Okay.
Okay. This is the extent. And I'm very clear,
Yeah.
My advice even to one William Samoei Ruto. Saa ingine, it's good to be man enough to accept.
Okay, I have a practical question. Do you see people, for example, Eric goes to the pump and he says, you know what, fuel is supposed to be 8%, it's not supposed to be 16%. And he says, oh, well, to the doggies, I'm not going to buy this fuel.
Who is selling that fuel?
Hang on. Do you see that actually?
No, but who is selling that fuel? Who is selling? Government does not sell the fuel.
Whoever is selling
No, hold on. Government, listen, let's be practical. No. Hold on. Government does not sell that fuel. So, it's a company. A company will obey the law. And even if it has not been gazetted by EPRA, they will say, by the way, this is the court order. It says 8%. Right? How long? And they'll be advised by even the auditors that I'm sorry, if you are not obeying the law, then you're going to be hit with a clash action suit that may ground it to a halt. And they will obey the law. And KRA can do nothing about it.
Okay.
So I'm saying you are getting to an extent where now it is in our hands. It's not government.
This is okay.
Right? Where they can ignore
so when
court
you
orders.
Say KRA is supposed to go and collect taxes because in as much as there is Jimmy, and we can't run away from the reality that there is outrage in the hearts of Kenyans today. There really is. We cannot run away from that. But between the outrage and the action that is going to lead to something being done, there is a long road.
Who is doing it?
My question is this. You gave another example about KRA, for example.
Who is doing it?
You give another example about KRA where they say, you know what? You cannot collect taxes. Businesses that are operating in the city and KRA comes knocking on the door and say, I'm not paying you. Do you see that happening?
You know, I think you're not out here in the market with us.
No,
I think one thing I can tell you today, and I can tell you even without all of that, KRA, do you hear of those people who were commissioned and trained, I think 2,000 or 3,000, that were going around shops collecting tax? Do you have them anymore?
They're still there.
No, do you hear of them?
I don't hear of them, but it doesn't mean they're not there.
Who told you they are not there? Or there? They are not there. They have literally found hostility on the ground and they have withdrawn most of their activities. Most of the activity. Taxation collection or even enforcement of a government is as good as the goodwill of the people. The minute the goodwill goes, you are going to a state of anarchy. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. The government cannot believe and act as though it is a monopoly of anarchy. They are going to spread the same anarchy to each and every one of us. So, I repeat, who is doing the payments? It is not government. I am telling you, if the order, and I believe it will come, says I pay 8% on my fuel, I want to see which petrol station is going to charge me 16. Because my problem...
Do people really care even to look at how this money is distributed within the final retail price to know there's 16 or there's 8%? Do Kenyans really care about that?
Yes, they do.
Actually,
it's a big part of cost of living. You know, Ken,
but
you're underestimating the civic education of Kenyans.
I am not. I'm just asking, when am I going to compare? Because what the government is doing, it's becoming very clever how it hides this 8%. Right? So do people really care when I go to the petrol station to see my reduction? What is this amount of reduction that I must have seen at the pump price, the retail price, to know that it's 16 or it's 8 at that point? What is this? And secondly, what is that trigger? 25th of June, there was a trigger, finance bill. What is this trigger? Because these things are festering. Pole too. So what is this trigger in your mind, Jimmy, that will bring this second wave?
You know, Ken, I was saying before you came, that the trigger of the finance bill, even after it was rejected, the demonstrations continued. Because the pain is still there. It is still there. What people were complaining about is more pain. The pain that Finance Bill 2024 was bringing. But the pain was still there and is still here.
Okay.
Right? So, please, that's what you don't underestimate.
Okay.
Now, let me go back. Let me go back to retail price.
Yeah.
The amount of civic education going on here, today, if you read Twitter or go on TikTok, it is continuous civic education, right? Being broken down even in different languages. I have a young man who approached me to say, this debt thing, I have now broken it down to 7 languages on TikTok. And it is so that everyone can understand. You've heard of others who are going around the country with civic education. Others who are talking about Bonoko projects. Right? This thing is no joke. We are now counting the pennies. And do not underestimate the intelligence of our people. They are so far ahead of even these leaders. You're going to get the shock of your life. Now, you're talking about trigger. The trigger is this. Not only is the pain not stopping, it is increasing. Because the more you have this situation where a government is catalyzing no growth at all, is in distress, debt distress, that is pain to each and every single one of us. I was on this show talking about debt default. The eventuality of not having the income, even being reduced to 2022 finance raising measures, just that alone. That alone, my friend, will lead it to distress, will lead it to default. And the pain of default is a pain you don't wish on this country. But these guys cannot stop it. And at that point, I can tell you, you're going to ask, what are we defaulting on? What is this debt, which I don't understand? That now I'm being told my assets I must give my assets to support something I do not know ever came to me. And at that point, you're going to say no. That will be probably the biggest trigger. Okay. The biggest trigger. All right? Because as long as you do not have the taxation, the income, to deal with this ever-growing thing called debt, you're done.
The question that you raised about the pump, if you read and if you even look at KRA's records for revenue collection through the fuel levy, it has dipped. So it was intended, the 16% was intended to raise revenue. It has achieved the complete opposite.
Laffer curve.
Yes. So it means that even the money the government was hoping to get, it now will not get.
Now you imagine now when it goes further down, I can assure you, because people have gotten used to not having, maybe not using their vehicles. Industry, because of recession, has slowed down.
Yes.
I can assure you that income will dip beyond your imagination. But not only that, fuel is but one aspect. It means ETIMS does not exist.
Yep.
All right.
There is an indication.
It means so many things will not be there. But I want to even take you. You see, we're just talking about the finance part.
I want us to take a break.
Okay.
And then we come back. It's 26 minutes to 9. Our guest is Jimmy Wenjeke. Our guest host for this hour is Ken Mijungu. We are talking about the economy and what's happening in the country. And Jimmy is doing his usual thing. He's predicting.
He's a prophet. Prophet Jimmy.
We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that Sisi ni ng'ombe is a baba.
Yeah.
Which means that you are willing to be milked dry.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The weather with SpiceFM.
Mostly cloudy or sunny conditions in Nairobi. It's 18 degrees and it's 19 and sunny in Nakuru, 17 and sunny in Nyeri, and 18 and sunny in Eldoret. 27 sunny conditions in Mombasa, 27 and the same in Malindi, and at 26 it's sunny in Kisumu, and you guessed it, sunny at 24 in Kakamega. It's partly sunny at 24 in Kampala and sunny conditions at 28 in Dar es Salaam. We're looking at a sunny day at 18 in Johannesburg, sunny at 29 in Mogadishu, and sunny at 18 in Addis Ababa. The continent is sunny. Same thing in Lagos at 24, cloudy however in Kinshasa. 16 and mostly cloudy in Paris and sunny at 24 in Beijing Monday afternoon. It's 15 and cloudy in London and Sunday night at 15 in New York, coming into Monday highs of 25.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Yeah, we continue. 23 minutes to 10. Our conversation with Jimmy Wanjege continues. Ken Mijungu is our guest host. Ken?
I know City wanted to ask you a question, but even as Jimmy predicts doom for this government, there's a lot of hope, especially in the broad-based government. I know you have a name for it, but the broad-based government bringing the ODM people to government seemingly brought a lot of hope. There are people who say it's a lull before the storm, but I think the ODM people in government right now, if you look at the way they're speaking, they tend to have taken a different trajectory altogether. They seem to be admitting there's a problem, and they seem to know there's a solution. However, they're asking for more time, which you couldn't give President Ruto.
Now, Ken, I'll be very clear to you. As you know, a lot of my debate has been about public finance management. I was on Citizen a few weeks ago, where John Bundy is also a friend of mine.
The current CS?
The current CS is a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I said, I hope he does not make the mistake of his predecessors. I hope he is very careful with whatever he signs that his officers in Treasury give him. I hope he does not break the law. And I said the indication will be the Gazette notice that comes out every single month on the estimates of revenue and expenditure. All right? He was about to sign his first one, and he did. All right?
He was about, and he did.
And he did. And I said, be very careful what you sign. And he signed that Gazette notice.
Mm-hmm.
And I put the question to him today. You signed, John Bundy, that you are going to borrow 978 billion domestic borrowing. 978 billion. That is 1 trillion shillings domestically. You signed that you're going to borrow 593 billion external loans and grants. You have signed borrowings to the tune of 1.6 trillion shillings this financial year. When your president is busy telling Kenyans a lie that there's no more borrowings, he's going to collect money from tax. I ask John Bundy the following question. Where are these borrowings in the budget?
Which budget?
The budget that was passed. Whether you want to call it the appropriations bill, that is the budget. Where are these borrowings? Approved by Parliament. Parliament approved. Borrowings, external loans and grants of 276 billion only. There's no domestic borrowing it has approved. Parliament approved development projects, even in this supplementary so-called budget that they brought, of 476 billion shillings. All borrowings must go towards development. Where is this extra money going to? The law says you can only borrow for development. Which borrowing is this for? You have signed an illegal Gazette notice. You have now become the owner of ODS debt. One day, John Bundy, you will ask yourself, when you are before a court of law, what the hell did I do?
Did he have a choice?
Yes.
What was the choice? He's the Treasury Cabinet Secretary. There's a
As I
document.
said, I warned him before. Are you looking at the bottom line? Are you asking questions of your Treasury officials? Are you following the law? The law is clear. You cannot borrow what is not on the budget. Where are these borrowings on the budget? They don't exist. You have put your hand to a Ponzi scheme that is our chain and our slavery. This so-called broad-based government has officially become a fraud-based government. Do you understand, Ken? They are perpetuating a fraud on 54 million Kenyans. There's no change. It's the same thing.
By the way, these trillion shillings that's borrowed domestically, who's lending the government $1 trillion, Bob?
These banks. These banks. It's our money.
And the interest is
and they
above
yes.
16%.
You see, even before we go to interest at 16% to 18%, it's just a Ponzi scheme. None of these banks can tell you what their money funds, because it must fund Chapter 12. The law says you can only borrow for development. You can only borrow what is on the budget. These monies that don't exist in the budget. Remember, there's no revenue estimates that are tabulated anywhere. The revenue estimates tell you where government is going to get its income. And if there's a deficit, it is also anchored there. All right? Okay? They never want to show you that why. Because it must correspond with expenditure. And if they're borrowing, it must correspond with expenditure development. But because they're not borrowing for that purpose, they don't put it. That is why they're in trouble with the Court of Appeal. That's why they are going to be in trouble with the Supreme Court. Because there's been debt bonoko here.
So money is going
fake
to
things here. And John Bundy has just signed. He's now taken ownership of this fraud. And I want him. You have to be very careful.
Jimmy, do ask a question and it becomes relevant now. When you have a situation in Nakuru County where goons who are being shepherded by the chief of police of that region are removing patients from hospital, the court summons him, he does not come. The court summons him again, he does not come. Then, small fry, that's Nakuru County. We come to the national level. Big boss mwenyewe. How many times? Was it 5? Yeah.
Maybe he'll come today.
Yes, maybe he'll come today. We seem to have a culture where, and it began in the Uhuru era, where court orders, as far as certain individuals are concerned, exist to be disobeyed. Now, Supreme Court says, okay, guys, this can't happen. I mean, this is a question who was asking, what guarantee do we have?
You see,
that it will not be disobeyed?
Who are the implementers? In those cases, the police are the ones implementing, and they decide they want to be an anarchy arm of the government. I am also a victim of that. Now, in this case, who pays tax? You and I.
We all do.
And we can refuse because it's not lawful. So they can't do anything to us. Right now, if you don't pay tax, the taxman can come and give you a notice. Even seize your money in your bank account. Correct? When it's not lawful, he can't.
He doesn't have the basis.
He doesn't have the basis. Power is within you.
Well, but
those who are loaning will know. I am loaning unlawfully. It will never come back to me. So why loan?
Meaning
these are within.
If the government defaults, there's nothing the banks can do.
Nothing.
There is no law that will support.
No, forget about default. I'm even not going there. I'm saying if the government, for example, is stopped from doing domestic borrowing,
yes,
this 1 trillion shillings, it can't survive. It cannot pay the Ponzi scheme it has created. What do you think will happen? It will default. Are you going to say that they are going to insist that banks give them that money?
Yes.
On what basis?
On no basis, Jimmy.
No, but if the law is not there, hold on, Eric. The law is not there. So how is it enforced?
Impunity.
No, how is it enforced?
Impunity.
It's my money in my account.
Impunity.
How do you force me? No, please.
There was no order that required police to camp at your gate. Were they there? Were they not?
But they were the ones implementing.
Exactly.
And they decided to forget about it. No, hold on. That's what I'm trying to explain, Eric. That just like taxation, that is the same thing. It's my money in my account. Why would I loan you and I'll never get it back because it's against the law? I'll hold it. Right? Why would I pay tax and you can never enforce the payment of that tax?
I will give you
because examples. You can never do anything to me.
Yeah.
It's within my preserve. You as government cannot do anything.
That's true.
Yes,
very good.
That's the point. Now, when you are talking about coming to my house,
hold on.
They were the ones implementing.
And government implements all the time.
No.
I want to give you examples. In taxation, who collects the tax? It's government, right?
Sharing.
Yes. It's government.
Yes.
Who pays the tax?
How do they collect it? But how do they collect it?
In various ways.
How?
One of them is, for example, housing levy. Okay? Omtata goes to court. Housing levy is declared. This one is illegal. All right?
Find a way around it.
No. Even before finding a way around it, housing levy is collected for months.
No.
Hold on. It had been collected for months.
They stopped.
Yes, but it had been collected.
No, but they stopped.
But it had been collected.
The eventuality, that's what I'm trying to
3
say.
billion.
No, I'm glad you brought that as an example.
Jimmy, let me finish. 3 billion or thereabouts had been collected. Was it 3? Was it 30?
No, it was more than 3.
It was 20, the one that
It was more. Yeah.
Had been collected. The next thing was, now refund or find ways. Has it been refunded or found ways? Hold on.
Yes.
The Court of Appeal says Finance Act 2023 is illegal. Okay? The following day is the 14th of the month. What does EPRA do?
Its thing.
It comes up with its thing. And what does its thing contain? 16% VAT on fuel. Up until the day that the Supreme Court said, halt the implementation of what the Court of Appeal had said, what happened at the pump? Prices were based on 16%. Impunity, Jimmy.
Eric.
You're asking on what basis? Basis is good theory.
No.
In practice, impunity
Eric,
will make it
Eric,
happen.
you are distorting facts. The facts.
Before you respond,
Yes.
to add on that, the reason why the banks will still give government money, they're the biggest trading partners to the government. That's why
whose money is it?
Our interests
Whose money
are
is
high. It doesn't matter, but the biggest trading partners of the government. So they will definitely look at where the bread is buttered.
Okay.
This is the government that gives the most business.
I will be very clear here.
Yes.
First, Eric, before I come to you. Eric, housing levy was stopped.
Yes.
And the eventuality is the government had to stop it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But even before the government stopped it, you had advisories across the board from accountant firms, from employers federation, from unions. That money is not to be deducted.
Yes.
And it stopped. Even before the government acted. So it stopped. Because that deduction is done by private people. Your employer deducts it. A union can complain. All right? The government is not the implementer.
Jimmy.
And even before they removed it, it was cut. So I'm trying to be practical. You asked us. Let me finish. I allowed you to finish.
You said I'm distorting. So
Eric,
correct the facts.
That's the fact. I'm trying to correct that you are saying the practice and the theory are two different things. The practice was there. Even before the government withdrew it, the Employers Federation stopped them.
Okay.
Unions stopped them. Let me finish, Eric. Let me finish. I allowed you to finish. I allowed you to finish.
Was there an employee who was deducted housing levy during all this time?
No, please. I have answered your question.
You haven't.
It was stopped. And it was withdrawn from payroll slips. They then had to come back with another thing called housing fund. Mm-hmm. Okay? And until then, it started again.
So let me
Eric, I've allowed you to talk.
Let me correct you. There were deductions for the housing levy. Okay? There may have been private employers who did not remit. but there were deductions for the housing levy. Before the court came and put a halt onto it, there were deductions.
You're not listening to me.
Was the money returned?
No, you're not listening
that
to
was my
me.
point.
No, you're not listening to me. You are saying the government continued deducting and people continued deducting. When the court order came, that deduction was stopped by employers, right?
By everybody.
And by unions.
Yes.
That is the practice. The court stopped it. The government, right, had no avenue to collect it. That's the practice.
And they had collected
I can tell you,
26.8 billion.
yes, I can tell you that further to that, there was a court order that said, because it was attempted about withdrawal, about returning the money, that the government is not duty bound to return it.
Yes.
Okay? Again, the court. So the practice is clear that it was stopped and it was implemented. Ken has raised something about banks. Banks loan to get profit for their shareholders. If that loan is proved illegal, they are now in the realm of fraud, securities fraud. That is where they go. And the cost for them is phenomenal. It's not their money, it is our money in their accounts. It is not theirs. You will not take my money to a fraudulent activity. So please, that's what I'm saying, that here we have the strength. It is not government to implement. It is the law that we will obey. We will obey it and we have the strength to implement it. It's within our purview. If the commissioner or the IG of police wants to disobey court orders, hiyo ni yake. Eventually, if he's going to take you to court, it will be struck off because he disobeyed orders. So the intention was never to take you to court. It was some other purpose, right? So at the end of the day, even his activities of anarchy come to an end. But here, we have the strength, the capacity to say we are not going to do it.
Jimmy, we do.
And we will do it because we will be backed by law.
Yes, we are. But what we are saying is our lived experience. This really is the point that
No. This is a different thing.
No. It is not a different thing, Jimmy. The point is, everything you say makes sense. Everything you say can even be supported by law. Everything you say can be supported by the Constitution. Then I pause there and I say, our lived experience. You see, when you have people who are in political power and positions and they are hell-bent on doing exactly what they want, not what the law says, that seems to be our lived problem.
So tell me, City.
Yes.
How do they make me pay tax that is not lawful?
For instance, what you say about the pump, I would like to see if the petrol stations will reduce that cost.
They have no choice. Because then they're anticipating, just like the employer on the housing levy, they are going to be anticipating a direct hit to them, not to KRA. Because you hold them accountable, not KRA.
I understand.
So the basis here, please go slow. This is not the normal thing. And I'm glad Eric brought up the housing levy. The court stopped it. It is the Employers Federation, it is unions that said you cannot deduct anymore. And that deduction was removed. Long before the government pronounced itself, it kept saying, oh, we are changing. The court said we are changing, we adjust this thing. It pronounced itself. It's the same thing here. Because who are the implementers? It's not the government. Once something is not lawful, it's a game changer.
It's a game changer.
That's the thing you're not...
I haven't understood. That's what I'm waiting to see. Because we are talking about businesses that want profit.
But if I don't have... Listen, if I'm not duty bound to pay a tax, why would I pay it? Who is going to enforce
So
that
you're
paying
looking
of
at
tax?
it from the company perspective before it gets to the end user.
Who wants to pay tax? Now you're being told, I mean, I don't know what you guys are saying. You're being told now you don't have to pay. And then you say...
No, I'm still paying.
I'm still paying. Give me a break. Come on.
So you're looking at it from the company base, not the retail.
Who is going to pay?
Okay.
You're going to say this thing is not lawful. Why are you deducting it?
Why am I adding
It's not lawful.
Jimmy, you've changed the argument.
No, but that's what happens. That's what happens. That's what happens. Why do you take on a cost
the
to your
practical
income?
side of it.
And the law is saying that you don't have to.
It's sound because the companies will say no.
Yeah.
The practical side of it is that, yes, you're going to, say no, you're going to hold back, you're going to push back to it, but I'll bring you back. 26 billion shillings was collected.
No, the law.
26.8 billion shillings was collected.
Yes.
In the time that 26 billion.
No, my friend. The law.
See, let me finish.
Eventually, it stops.
See, let me finish. The 26 that was collected, where is it now?
They wanted to do it.
It's in abeyance.
Yeah. It's in abeyance.
Because that 26 billion was collected on an illegal law, so that one is out, and was before the Housing Levy Fund Act, the regulations.
So they've eaten it.
Housing, yeah.
So where is the 26
So you're
billion?
saying it has been eaten?
That's the point I'm trying to tell you, Jimmy. That you can come up with all these theories and law, but 26 imeenda.
No, Eric.
Wake up.
You must appreciate how far we have come.
Very
Do
far.
not be
26 billion
dismissive.
shillings.
No, hold on. Do not be dismissive on a blatant thing like that. I can tell you that. The eventuality of our capacity to abide by the law as citizens has come out. You yourself said we stopped paying the housing levy long before the government pronounced itself. It is within our control. That's what you're not understanding. Taxation payment is within our control. If it does not exist, why will you pay it? You will refuse. In this company alone, you will all start saying, why are you deducting me? It's unlawful. You will not sue KRA, you will sue the company. It doesn't exist. If you are giving a loan, why would I give and it's unlawful? No bank will do it. They are risking their own reputations and their own demise, because we who have deposited in those banks will ask them what the hell they were doing. So please, do not compare the malfeasance of 26 billion that they've so-called taken before people understood what the law is. As no growth. We have grown, and it is within our power. And I'm trying to tell you that this government, even in this budget that Bandi is so-called trying to implement, is an unlawful budget. It's an unconstitutional budget.
Yet the banks
and
are
it will come. No. Yes. But you see,
Top of the hour,
they are
Jimmy.
being educated. They are being educated.
They have lawyers. If these banks don't have lawyers,
we are. Let me tell you.
Let's end it there.
They are slowly being educated, and if they are refusing to listen, then you know they are participants to the fraud, and it will eventually catch up with them.
On that, I agree.
It will eventually.
That I agree.
They eventually
bid. That I agree.
Yes.
But for now, they're still lending to the government, knowing it's not in the budget.
I'm glad you're saying that. I'm glad you're saying that because you're telling them.
Thank you very much,
I'm
Jimmy,
so
for
glad.
joining us. And Ken, good to have you here again.
Asante sana.
Keep it here for more entertainment. Coming up, we'll be back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Our guest has been Jimmy Wanjege.
Asanteni sana.
Good morning. This is the News Wire. I'm La Ubaga. News just in is that 2 people have died and 20 others have been injured after 2 matatus collided along the Nakuru Eldoret highway. Police Commander Samuel Ndanyu says one of the matatu drivers was overtaking carelessly, leading to the accident.